What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto became the Shinobi king? And his throne was surrounded by brides. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. Long ago, and far away, two ninjas sat together on a tree branch. They were dressed in black clothes, with black hoods, and all of their weapons were made of black metal that didn't shine. They were both rather lost. Moments before, they had killed an evil wizard, and tried to steal a magical artifact from him. Unfortunately for them, the assassination went perfectly, the theft did not. The taller of the two turned his eyes towards his partner. Well, at least no one will remember us. A fine end for a shinobi, I suppose. Both men knew they were very far from home. Forest with trees of the number and size they were seeing didn't exist anywhere on their world. The pair had seen most of it. They were still young, but had seen much in their short 7 years of service as fully trained professionals. They were the best in their trade in generations, and had a reputation for excellence, at a price according to the few who had known them. You know Ryu, you're right. Any idea where we are? The other was only a little shorter than his friend. The man closed his eyes. Nope. There are people here. A settlement, that way. He nodded to the east. No hurry to meet them, Ken. We've got time. I don't expect we'll be going back? His voice wavered a little. I suppose not. That stupid mirror didn't come with us. I'm not sure we're dealing with people. His head turned. Well, I guess that answers that. Someone dressed in bright orange was moving about on the forest floor below. He looked about 10 or so, with very blonde and spiky hair. His partner nodded. Right. They jumped off the branches, and bounded their way down to the tiny orange and yellow spot far below them. Naruto Uzumaki froze. He was training, out on his own not far from the village. Two men appeared on either side of him out of nowhere. One of them spoke up. You're a bit small to be wandering out on your own this far. Who is with you? The taller one was looking about with his arms crossed in front of him. The other was behind him. They'd come out of nowhere, and just appeared from outside his field of vision and caught him off guard. The kid growled. The jerks didn't know what they were messing with. What's it to you? What do you want? What are you doing out here? Tell me. The shorter one gave a distasteful snort. Is that what passes for manners around here? Why are you dressed like that? Are you hunting or something? Naruto growled. I'm a ninja, you jerks. The pair burst into laughter. After a moment they were gasping for breath and wiping tears from their eyes. The blonde kid growled. Hey, it's true, one day, I'm gonna become Hokage. It only made the men laugh harder. They were bent over and slapping their knees, howling with laughter. Stop, you're killing us. The shorter one was doubled over and had a bit of trouble saying it through his laughter. Grr, look, are you going to attack me or what? The boy looked steamed. The adults calmed and the taller one slapped his knee. A ninja, he says. It's great. Wow. Ken was still fighting off his chuckles. Ryu looked confused. I think he wants us to attack him. What? Why? Ken shrugged and scratched his head. The other shinobi nodded. Well, I suppose we did surprise him. Hey, I'm gonna believe it. The kid stuck his tongue out. Ryu looked at his friend. Look, maybe he's retarded? Ken nodded and looked thoughtful. Yes, most unfortunate. It would explain why he's shouting, wouldn't it? The orange jumpsuit too. Yes. A ninja, dressed like that? How silly. The pair looked at the boy. Naruto had his jaw hanging. You jerks. I am not retarded. Ryu shrugged. Then why are you dressed like that if you're a ninja? Is it some sort of uniform, to help you infiltrate the enemy's base? The man seemed to think the kid was playing some sort of game. Man, this is so weird. The kid gave a sigh. Look, what's wrong with my clothes? The men crossed their arms and looked at each other. Ken spoke up. Well, we're real ninja. Look, black hoods, black clothes, sandals, swords, the whole deal. It's kind of hard to hide in the shadows dressed as a crossing guard kid. You need to cover that hair of yours up too. You stick out like a sore thumb. Naruto was confused. So what are you doing here then? Ken shrugged. Actually, we're just sort of here. I suppose we're for hire. We're new to the area, don't worry, you won't be seeing us around. The young ninja frowned at them. He had gone silent. What do you want? Ryu chuckled. Just to have a chat with one of the locals. We weren't even sure if we spoke the same language, to be honest. Yeah? Well, get lost then. I know if I work hard enough, I'll become a true ninja and become Hokage. The boy frowned at them. The pair of older shinobi looked at each other. Ken scrunched his eyebrows. What's a Hokage? Ryu shrugged. I'm not sure. Some kind of ninja apparently. Ken whispered to his partner. Let's have a bit of fun then. Learn the lay of the land. Ryu nodded and seemed to understand. We'll learn the lay of the land, and in return. Ken chuckled. Pure entertainment. Naruto was huffing away, grumbling to himself. Black? What? That's stupid. He looked up and saw them both leaning on trees ahead of him. Hey, kid, you really want to be a real ninja? Ken pushed himself off his tree. We can train you, but it's gonna take total commitment. If you agree, you've got to go through with it. No backing down. It's real hard too, harder than you think. Ryu nodded and looked up the road. It's gonna really hurt, in lots of different ways, but you'll live. You seem like a tough kid. I kind of like you. Ken leaned in towards the uncomfortable-looking boy. How'd I know? They were both just gone all of a sudden. He closed his eyes, feeling for them, reaching out to find their chakra. He'd never pulled it off before, but it was worth a shot in his mind. Hey, why are his eyes closed? Ken's voice piped up. Naruto was on his rear, gasping for breath. Wha? How did? Ryu snorted in amusement as the boy looked between them in surprise. They were right back where they were before they'd vanished, in the same positions. Well, I suppose we could use a student. The boy took a few steps back. Why would you want to train me? The men shrugged and replied in unison. We've got nothing better to do right now. Ken nodded and looked the boy in the eye. Plus, we don't really know much about this place. It's a long story. The boy looked up at the sky. I've got time. Naruto was grinning at the pair. Wow, that's so cool. Some sort of magic mirror? He had spent the better part of an hour listening to their final mission for their former government. Ken looked annoyed. Ryu had done most of the storytelling. Yeah, cool. Ryu shrugged. Neither one of us had a family. It's not so bad. A fresh start. Naruto seemed saddened for a moment. Yeah, no family. The two ninjas slapped his shoulders. Ryu looked down at him. It's a deal then? We'll teach you how to be a shinobi, and you teach us how stuff works around here. Ki shook the boy's shoulder. It seems we've found a kindred spirit. Something tells me you don't have much to miss at home either. I guess. I'll show you to the village. The boy shrugged and nodded. He didn't really trust them, but he was starting to like them a bit. They seemed very cheerful. Ken shook his head. No need. We don't like other people much. You do understand that the entire point of the shinobi arts is not being seen, right? You know, silence, stealth, spying, assassination, theft, and espionage. That's kind of what it is. The best ninja is the one who only his master and those he needs to work with even know he exists. We are not to be seen, only felt, and no evidence of our passing can be left. Unless it's part of your instructions. Sometimes they want you to leave a note or steal something. Not often though. The boy whipped his head to stare at the man. What? Ryu looked down at the boy. Neither one of them had removed their hoods. If you train with us and work hard, you will be invisible. Come, let's see how well you do. Ken was quite pleased. The boy appeared to be a total sap. He believed their story, even if it was true, it was still rather thick of him in his opinion. It would be an absolute gas. The boy looked pensive, but he was still young. I'm not so sure I should. I think I could get in trouble for this. Ryu slapped his shoulder and looked at his friend. They needed someone who could tell them a bit about where they were. Well, what they don't know won't hurt them. It's secret training after all, not very useful if you tell everyone. What good is being invisible if everyone else is too? He was looking to curb future boredom with the boy, but they needed to learn as much as they could about their new surroundings. This training is just for you, just between us. You look like the type who might enjoy getting into a bit of trouble for some fun sometimes. Ken nodded at his partner in a serious manner. He knew what he was doing. They were going to have to find this village, scout it out, and infiltrate it to learn as much as they could about where they'd found themselves. He didn't think it was just another country. They were very far from home, and wouldn't see it again. He wasn't all that upset, as it was sort of expected. Very few of his kind survived to retire, and they weren't very useful at home most of the time anymore. The boy had become suspicious if questioned directly. Gaining his trust through training would help get him to open up about where they were. Lucky break, finding this one. Naruto seemed annoyed. I don't even know you guys. How do I know you're really from another dimension, and that you're not trying to trick me into some sort of plot against the village? Ken and Ryu looked at each other. Ryu shrugged his shoulders and cocked his head a little. Well, there are only two of us. How much damage do you think two people can cause? The boy looked somber. Quite a bit. Yes. It will be fun though. Ryu nodded and grinned. I do hope you enjoy getting into a little trouble. We're good at that. Ken was just as cheerful about the subject. Ryu looked over at his friend. Do you think they did it to us on purpose? Ken blinked and worked his mouth. Well, maybe we did go a bit far. The boy was annoyed and confused. What are you talking about? Ken looked down at him and sighed. It's pretty peaceful where we come from. I mean, there's the occasional decent job, but we get kind of bored. Ryu got a wistful grin on his face. Yeah, we replaced the shogun's daughter's tea stores with dried pot. Ken shook his head. That went rather well. She married the next day. I kind of feel sorry for the guy. She was fun after she drank it, otherwise. He shuddered. I'm thinking it was when we cut out the soles of that visiting dynamo's shoes and replaced them with those dried turd molds we made. The taller shinobi nodded. Perhaps. That was a good one by the way. They were fine indoors, but the moment he went outside and stepped in that puddle, classic. The shorter one chuckled. Ah, I am going to miss it I suppose. It's a good thing we're so good at disappearing. They never could prove it was us. Naruto was looking a bit dazed. So, what is it you're supposed to be teaching me? Ryu ruffled his hair, it annoyed the boy, and made him chuckle. How to get in trouble, and not get caught of course. Ken nodded. Yeah, it's a real bitch to learn, but once you've got it, it's loads of fun. His partner nodded. Pretty much. Thing is, once you start, you can't stop. We won't let you, so if you agree, you're stuck with us until we decide we're through with you. The boy scratched his head. Huh? Okay, I guess. Ken extended his hand. It's agreed then? Naruto seemed to mull on it and looked at the man's hand. It would be nice to be able to get out of trouble. People like to blame things on him, and it wasn't fair. It wasn't his fault. Do I have to come out here and meet you every night or something? The pair looked at each other. Ryu nodded. There's a bit of that involved, but you'll be seeing this about more and more. Ken was quite cheerful as he agreed. Yeah, we're your new invisible friends. The boy looked surprised. Friends? Ryu coughed and looked at his friend. Well, we are training you. We like you, but we're in charge I'm afraid. You've got to do whatever we say. Don't worry, you won't always like it, but we'll look after you. Naruto gave them another stare down with his arms crossed. He decided he didn't trust either one of them, but he liked them anyway. It was odd, but he felt very much alone. He grasped the man's hand. Deal. Ken nodded and winced at the boy's loud shout. He leaned in and shook his shoulder. Good. Now, lesson 1, stop shouting. It calls attention to you, but not of a good sort. The boy looked surprised. Huh? Ryu gave a grave nod. Yes, it is very important you learn to speak silently. If you cannot, we will be forced to cut out your tongue. Ken nodded. Yeah, Kanzaki was a great shinobi, despite his handicap. He really should have listened to Master Koto though. Naruto looked worried. Right. He squeaked it out. What are you gonna do to me anyway? We'll find interesting situations to put you into. Plus, we'll show you the ropes and teach you a few tricks of the trade when you meet with us. We'll give you advice, though it might not always be good, in order to get you to learn something. Ryu shrugged. We're not always honest, but we'll get you trained. Even we have some honor. We promise to look after you while you are training. Ken looked down and ruffled his hair. The boy flushed, he wasn't used to that sort of thing and shied away a little. Why do you want to become Hokage? So people will notice me and acknowledge me. I'll become a true hero, and become Hokage, then everyone will know and respect me. He got very excited and posed with his thumb up. Ryu and Ken stopped, held his shoulders and spoke at the same time. Then you can't be a ninja. Ryu shook his head and sighed. If that's what you want, you need to be a samurai. What you desire is not the path of a true ninja. To be the greatest ninja, no one can remember you, save those who stand with you. Ken gave a grave nod. You must become invisible, untraceable, non-existent. We are not to stand out and face our enemies openly. It is not the path of the ninja. If you find what you seek in this line of work, you're not doing it right. Hokage is a fine aim, a noble goal. Those are things for samurai, not shinobi. We have our own way, our own honor. His partner gave a more cheerful nod. Yes, but it's also much more fun. We don't have to worry about purity or honesty or face-to-face dumb-ass fair fights. We're much more laid back, just don't go crazy and start hurting innocent people, and you'll pretty much be fine. We are about precision, speed, silence, and stealth. We are meant to move quickly, and not be noticed. That usually means not lingering about with others much. We don't kill for fun or pleasure, though it can be a bit satisfying to get rid of the right sort of person. The other shinobi shrugged. That's not to say you can't want to be Hokage someday. I suppose it's not impossible, but we wouldn't know much about that. You seem to believe it, there's nothing wrong with that, but to become a true ninja, you might be forced to give up that dream. It is best to be ready to face that fate. Ken smirked. Last chance to back out, kid. His partner gave a serious nod. Yes, someone looking for personal glory or personal revenge can be more dangerous than the enemy. The life of a shinobi is a life of service, not glory, and there is no room for revenge or personal feelings in it. Let the samurai have their honor, I prefer duty. Those who seek personal ambition cannot be trusted with duty. Sooner or later, their ambition will stand in the way, and such a man will become unreliable. Ryu chuckled. Yes, though, it is kind of nice to take a break from that, I suppose. We're not really serving anyone now. Naruto hung his head and gave a heavy sigh. You guys are weird, but I like you for some reason. I guess I'll train with you. His eyes were rather wide and he looked like he'd had a sort of horrible realization. Ken shook his head. Don't look so down, kid. You're not so bad off. What's your name? Uzumaki Naruto. The boy gave a sort of dazed nod. I'm Master Ken, and this is Master Ryu. Look, being Hokage is a fine aim. Your duty may one day prevent it, but it might not. You aren't going to be much good if you're more worried about that than you are about what you are doing. Have your dream, but remember it may just be a dream. Duty comes before ambition for a shinobi. That doesn't mean we can't have a bit of fun sometimes, though. It's not so bad. Just remember, you've got to make up for it later when they need you. It will help keep your mind and skills sharp, but it will also upset people sometimes, so you've got to learn how to not get caught. Naruto's eyes lit up a little. Like pranks and stuff? As training? Ryu nodded. We can teach you, and in return, you teach us about this place we've found ourselves in. We're not from this world, and I'll tell you now, you won't learn what we can teach you from anyone here. I guarantee it. That sealed the deal in the boy's mind. Right, I can do it. Ken put his hand on his shoulder. Don't forget lesson 1. Not just with us either, it's annoying, and you should just stop doing it. Remember, we will honor our end of this deal. You will be trained, by any means necessary. Now, this is our duty. Ryu looked a bit surprised, but nodded in a serious manner. Very well. Putting all our chips on this one, are we? The boy looked up at him with a frown on his face and nodded. I will learn. 2 years later, Ryu and Ken were just outside the ninja village. They had discovered the place they had found themselves in was very close to Japan. Even the food was good. They were looking out across the village with telescopes hidden in the rocks on the nearby mountain. Ken snorted through his nose. Ninja village indeed. I'm telling you, they aren't shinobi. They just sort of act like shinobi most of the time. I had to agree. Ryu nodded and seemed less concerned with the subject. Really? Tossing about fireballs, making explosions, burning enough kai to turn yourself into a beacon, screaming, facing your enemies, being honest. It's kind of annoying, isn't it? His partner nodded. Yeah, whoa, there she is. There she is. He became excited and went quiet. Ryu couldn't spot what he was looking at. What is it? It's that hot babe in the fishnet shirt and coat. Man, this place is awesome. You'd think with all these plants they'd be able to make more fabric. Ken sighed. Man, I'm gonna figure that one out. She puts out too. Seen her with a couple guys in the village. Ryu nodded. Did she just swallow 3 octopus balls whole and toss the stick away? His partner was fixated on her rear. Yup, I think I'm in love. The taller shinobi chuckled. 3 at once? She's going to be a big girl when she's older. Ken shook his head. Are you kidding me? There are no fat chicks here. It's amazing. The girls are all cute, and the women. Ryu gave a small sigh as he looked about at the people on the street. It's like being stuck in an episode of Dragon Ball. You're right. Are we sure this isn't some sort of odd resort? I might if they weren't still burning wood fires for heat, and hunting and gathering these woods. There are cities about here, but they don't trade openly with them here. They don't seem to want the outside world to notice them. Do I look any hotter to you? Maybe it's something in the water? You're an asshole, you know that, right? His partner nodded. Yes, now I am an asshole with a mission. I'm gonna get me some of that. Might take a while, but I'm gonna do it. Ryu slapped his shoulder. Hey, it's the kid. Let's pay him a visit. Naruto Uzumaki stood alone with his hands in his pockets. He was dressed in black and standing in the shade of a tree. He didn't feel like being around other people at the moment. He had a black scarf around his neck and a hood hiding his hair. Everyone hated him, blamed him when something went wrong if he was nearby. He'd learned to get out of sight if something happened while he was around. His curse made a lot of people in the village avoid him. Most of the other kids would talk to him, but he could tell they were just putting up with him. A few tried to bully him, but his two invisible friends had helped make getting away much easier. It was rare for him to even have to throw a punch to avoid his tormentors. He'd developed a reputation in his age group as something of a coward because of it. Uzumaki Naruto, the crazy chicken. No one else seemed to really notice him. He'd grown to regret the deal he made with the two men in some ways. They let the school take care of training his body. They'd both expressed a bit of surprise in how fit was. He still couldn't use his chakra more than a little. Nothing useful at any rate. As usual, two voices came out of nowhere when he was alone. Hey kid, how's it going? He closed his eyes and growled. He knew they were nearby, but trying to see them had proven fruitless in the past. What do you want? Ken's familiar chuckle. We've got a job for you. Naruto growled. If he didn't, things would just start going wrong around him. They hadn't done anything for his image. He'd gotten so mad at them. He'd told the Hokage about them to try and explain why he'd filled the water fountain outside his house with noodles. He'd gotten a more severe punishment, and now everyone thought he had two imaginary friends. Great, now what? No one but him knew they existed, but they could make quite a mess if he didn't do what they wanted. We want 2 pairs of Anko Midarashi's panties. Bring them to the edge of the village tonight. We'll be watching. The boy went rigid. No way. Ryu clucked his tongue. Do it, or else. Naruto was sweating bullets. She'll kill me. Ken spoke up. Yeah, if she catches you. Think of it as a test. You'll be moving up in your training soon. Getting a new instructor and all in a month or two. It was the middle of the night. Naruto was sweating bullets, not saying a word, and wishing what was going on around him wasn't going on. Miss Anko was making a lot of noise, and not as asleep as he'd thought, nor was the guy he didn't give a spit about outside of not being seen. The pair was doing something under a sheet about 3 feet away from him. The only light was the moon from the window, leaving him in total darkness. He managed to open the drawer far enough to reach and grabbed a handful, and shoved the contents into his shirt. He looked over his shoulder, smirked, and continued to take them from the drawer, stuffing his sleeves and chest with as much as he could grab. The woman hadn't even poked her head out of the sheets, nor did the man she was with. He slipped away in silence, and left them alone. Well, we did say only 2. Ken looked at his partner. Both of them were wearing a pair of panties on their heads. Ken sniffed at 2 handfuls. They were also both wearing bras over their chests. Indeed. It was a wise decision though. He's to be commended this time, I suppose. Still, in the future, follow our instructions. Ryu crossed his arms and tried to look very wise. Yeah, well, what good is getting into trouble and getting away with it if I can't do it for me sometimes? He wasn't sure what had come over him, but it had given him a heck of a rush. Ken held one of them out. Would you like one? I suppose we can't enjoy all of them. Naruto waved his hands and shook his head. No way. What am I supposed to do with that? You guys are weird. Ryu shrugged. Well, you'll understand in a couple of years or so. The boy turned away. We're done, right? Ken held one of them in front of his face. Are you sure? A memento of passing your first test? And get caught with the evidence later? She's gonna blow her top. I don't want anything that ties me to that mess. Naruto waved his hands and jogged back towards the village. Ken and Ryu had panties over their pants by that point as well. Ryu looked at his friend. He's a good kid. Come on, we've still got a bit of that deer meat left. They both vanished into the shadows. We found it this morning, sir, and this one covered in paint. The Hokage gave a heavy sigh as he looked up at the vandalized faces on the mountain. Release Uchiha. He isn't the culprit, just a distraction. Sasuke had a frown on his face and jerked his arm free of the man who had brought him to the Hokage's side. The man released him with a surprised expression on his face. Sir, release him. He isn't to blame for this, just a convenient distraction. The old man tipped his hat up and puffed on his pipe. He looked a little annoyed. The young shinobi stiffened up. With all due respect, he's covered in paint, and there was no one else about. He even had a brush. The boy hung his head, he was angry and embarrassed. I woke up covered in paint with that brush on my chest in an alley near the path to the mountain. The old man chuckled. It seems our invisible prankster or pranksters has struck again. That paint looks like it was poured on him. He looked down at the rather miserable-looking boy. Uchiha, drop your pants. The boy's eyes went wide. What? He grabbed for his belt in a protective way and stepped back. The old man leaned in. There is only the two of us here, and it will clear your name. You weren't intended to take the blame, just to provide a distraction for our culprit. The boy nodded, turned about and dropped his shorts enough to expose his rear. The Hokage pointed. He's got no paint on his rear. It wasn't him. It's quite obvious those marks on the statue's lips were made when our mysterious vandal painted his rear and pressed them on the mountain. Sasuke Uchiha is innocent of wrongdoing. I'm sure I'll be getting an earful of this later. The old man hung his head and rubbed at his chin as he puffed on his pipe. A huge smiley face was drawn onto the mountainside and a poem. Laugh and the world laughs with you, fart, and you stand alone. There was a sudden loud rumbling, loud enough to echo off the mountain across the valley. Then, a peetering hissing sound. The old man sniffed at the air and wrinkled his nose. Wah? It was awful, a horrid pungent, yet familiar odor. Sasuke was holding his neck and gagging. Oh, he was looking at the old man with wide and horrified eyes. The adult shinobi was waving his hand in front of his face. Sir? Sasuke was staggering back and trying to fight off the overwhelming stench. I had no idea the Hokage was so powerful. The old man growled and turned to face them. It wasn't me, you idiots. The trio looked on as the village started to wander out of their homes. Most looking both confused and disgusted, just a few at first, but the crowd was growing. Here, sir. The Hokage frowned as he glared at the source of the odor that had washed over the entire village. It was a row of powerful fans hidden behind several boulders below the faces on the mountain. In front of these fans was the largest turd pile the old man had ever seen. I see. One of the two uniformed shinobi with him pointed to the power lines that had led them to the spot. Someone had managed to lay out almost a mile's worth of extension cords up to the spot. They were buried just under the dirt up to the point where the rocks gave enough cover to run them freely. There is no evidence? The old man gave a serious frown. Never is. The ninja on his left spoke up. The old man just smirked. I see. Very well, I suppose the worst is over for now. I'll take care of getting the mess cleaned up. Uzumaki Naruto, you will take care of the mountainside. The boy standing in front of the Hokage gave a simple nod and didn't speak. He had a rather smug-looking smirk on his face as he did it. He was dressed in the black and dark gray clothes he'd taken too, and had his hood off because his position required it. The old man didn't want to say anything, but the smirk bothered him a little. The boy was at the bottom of his class, had a poor attendance record, and had become rather quiet in the last 2 years. Do you know why? The old man paced in front of him, with his hands behind his back. The boy shrugged. You think it was me, but you can't prove it, but you don't want me to get away with it either? The old man looked surprised, and returned his smirk. Yes, that about sums it up. I know it was you, boy. He leaned in, took a puff from his pipe and blew it in his face. You stopped getting into trouble about the time this started. You used to be loud and obnoxious. Over the past few years, people barely remember you even exist. A sudden change. I do wonder sometimes about you. Such acts of evil only breed violence. It doesn't matter. It's not like I've got much else to be doing. I don't mind cleaning up the mess too much. It was pretty funny as far as I'm concerned. Naruto nodded and grinned at him. It had been more than worth it to see the look on Sasuke's face. The guy was a total jerk. The hardest part had been getting him out of his house without waking him or leaving a drag trail. The chloroform helped with that a great deal. Well, the whole village is upset. This isn't an isolated incident. A lot of children have been ending up like young Sasuke, with just enough evidence to make it appear they had a hand in it on them. Leaving others to take the blame for one's actions is the height of dishonor. The old man looked angry and sneered at the boy in front of him. Naruto didn't look worried or upset. Well, it's not like they really got blamed for any of it. Not always, sometimes he let them off easy. If this guy knew you'd let them off, there's no real problem, is there? The Hokage chuckled and relaxed a little. I wonder if he'd step forward to stop it if I did? The boy shrugged. I wouldn't bet on that either. He cocked his head for a moment and seemed to listen to nothing before giving a nod and looking up at the old man. Besides, if you did, and knew he was innocent, you'd share some of the blame for the injustice. The Hokage frowned at him. He'd heard about the boy's invisible friends. Others had seen him talking to nothing when he thought he was alone, and on the edges of the village. He turned his back and a grin formed on his face. You'll be taking an exam soon. The boy nodded and clenched his fist. This time, I'm gonna pass it. His voice was even, and his tone just above a whisper. The Hokage looked over his shoulder at the boy. He'd not heard Naruto's shout in 2 years. It had once been considered a trademark that he was loud and obnoxious. Now, anyone who wasn't old enough to remember his origins or spent time around him in classes could even recall his name. He wasn't often seen outside of school by anyone, but seemed to know what was going on about the village. You're up to something, boy. Naruto gave a nod and chuckled. Always. I'm gonna pass, and become a true ninja. The Hokage gave a short nod. Very well, see your instructor about getting that mess cleaned up. You may go. When he turned around, and found the boy gone, he wasn't as surprised as he'd once been. Naruto Uzumaki, what have you been up to? Something about Uzumaki got to him. He didn't know what it was, but it felt like a mixture of hope, pride, irritation, and worry. He had a feeling if he passed, his instructor would have his hands full. He would have to be very careful in choosing just who that person was. He was also a cause for worry. He knew what the boy had inside him, and his invisible friends made him nervous. No one had ever seen them, and there was no evidence they were real, but he wondered if they just might be more real than they imagined. The nine-tailed fox was very real, and very old and clever. He wasn't so sure the Kyubed didn't have something to do with his friends. He sighed and slumped down behind his desk. What am I going to do about that boy? Iruka frowned as he realized he could see patch of blonde in the classroom. Uzumaki, how good of you to join us. He was a young shinobi, with a scar across his nose and a few spikes of hair that poked from the tight wrapping on top of his head. He looked out over the students in his room and glared at him. The graduation exam is coming up, and you've failed it twice. This isn't the time to be causing problems. What did I do exactly anyway? Hokage just said I've got to clean up the mess. There's no proof I did anything. The boy rubbed his thumb along his nose and avoided eye contact. The instructor growled. That's it. Everyone, Henge no Jutsu test. Everyone transformed perfectly into me. There was a collective groan. The class looked annoyed with Naruto, and voiced it. Who is that kid? What's wrong with him? What did he do anyway? Iruka took control. Don't worry about that. Just get up here and take your test when I call your name and stop talking. Naruto had a grin on his face and sat back. People were giving him annoyed glances, but he didn't seem to notice. He was seen as rather dull-witted and cowardly. No one believed he would ever pass the test outside of the teaching staff, and even a few of them seemed skeptical. They stood in a line. Everyone was coming close enough to satisfy the man into passing them. Uzumaki Naruto. The boy shambled up and looked about. No one seemed to expect much from him. Henge. Iruka's jaw dropped as a beautiful naked girl appeared before his class. She blew a kiss at him and winked before vanishing. Naruto was standing in her place, with a smirk on his face. He looked up at the man and grinned. I call it, why no jutsu. Don't invent stupid skills, you moron. Iruka was livid and red-faced. Naruto gave a snort. Judging from your reaction, it could be quite deadly if I use it the right way. Iruka frowned at the boy. His face became serious and he thought about passing it. I can give the old man a heart attack. Hey, fail, nuts. The boy shuffled off to his seat and remained silent for the rest of the class. Cleaning up the monument wasn't as difficult as those who had him do it thought. The paint was already gone, leaving colorful pools of rainwater in the rocks under the carvings. Hey, lucky break for me, huh? Iruka frowned at the boy and knelt down beside the multicolored pools. The color in them swirled and shined. What the? Some kind of colored soap? I'd heard that Sasuke had paint on him though. He frowned and looked towards his student. Always misleading. He couldn't forget Naruto, and took notice of the boy and his absence. He was hard to keep track of, even within the confines of the classroom. There were days in the past he wasn't sure if the boy had attended class or not. The boy looked up and shrugged. I guess. Still, there's nothing to clean up now. The man crossed his arms and smirked. Oh, you think not? A short time later Naruto was standing in front of a huge mound of turds with a shovel in his hand and a wheelbarrow beside him. Nuts. Iruka nodded. Yes. Now, we're going to take this pile and get it down into the forest where it belongs. The boy muttered under his breath as he started shoveling. Yeah, I got nothing better to do. The man looked away as the boy started working. He didn't look pleased with his punishment, but was taking it rather well. Iruka was sitting with his student with a bowl of ramen in front of them. They had stopped after coming back from their little chore. The boy had taken 3 loads down the mountain and raked it all into the forest ground. It would keep the stench from blowing back to the village. The fans had been set up to take advantage of the wind. Naruto, why would you do such a thing? What did Sasuke do to you anyway? Nothing. Once again, you've got nothing on me. Nobody saw me do anything. He shook his head. Why are you so big on this? He leaned in and frowned at him. I know it was you now. You've never come into class so clean before. He hung his head and nodded as he ate. I took a bath. I don't stink, my nose is better than yours. I'm pretty sure. Why the long face? Always an excuse with you. Why can't you give a straight answer, kid? I'll give you some advice. You can't cheat an honest man. Never give a sucker an even break, or smarten up a chump. Naruto shrugged. What? Iruka was confused. Well, I guess that's not terrible advice. Still, you're not what I expected, Uzumaki, but I'm not giving you a break on this test. Right, thanks for the ramen. See you tomorrow. Iruka glanced over and noticed Naruto's seat was empty. He looked over his shoulder and frowned as he narrowed his eyes. Uzumaki had vanished, and he wasn't that surprised. I wonder if he really knew how right he was about that technique of his. Naruto hung his head and squeezed his eyes shut as Iruka explained that the test was Bunshin no Jutsu, his worst skill. He got up at his turn, frowned at the instructor, and tried the technique. A clone of himself appeared and crumpled to the ground. Damn, fail. The other instructor in the room overseeing the test spoke up. Mr. Mizuki was a much more cheerful-looking man. We could let him pass. This was his 3rd time, and he did create a clone. The boy looked over at the man, but his face fell just as fast. No way, Mizuki. All the others created 2 clones, and he only made 1 useless one. He fails. Iruka looked firm about his decision, but not angry. Naruto Uzumaki. Mizuki smiled at the boy he found watching the celebrating graduates. Mizuki-sensei. The boy looked a little somber, and didn't seem to care much about his surroundings. What did he tell you? Ryu's voice spoke to Naruto from the shadows as he walked home. The sun was setting, and both of his friends were hidden nearby. The boy glanced about, not able to spot them. Well, he told me there was this scroll that can show me how to do what I need to learn to pass my exam easy. It's in the Hokage's house though, and there's only one. Ken snorted. Typical. Look, we don't trust him, and you shouldn't either. Ryu agreed. He's up to something. If you think you should, do it. Don't let him find you with that scroll, and put it back when you're done. Naruto looked about the shadows with a thin, but long rolled-up page poking from his back. The Hokage was home, and he had something to find. Mizuki had told him about a way that Iruka would be forced to pass him. Well, he was supposed to think that according to his 2 friends. He was going to check it out, but didn't fully trust what he was doing was for just his benefit. He had something to do first. He noticed the light under the door beside him and smirked. He took the rolled-up page from his back and put it up on the wall opposite the door. It was hard to hold himself together and keep from chuckling as he glued it into place. Without a sound, he finished his job and vanished. A short time later, Naruto was sitting and looking at the oversized scroll in the woods surrounding the village, a fair distance away from it. Hey, it starts with what I want. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Neat. The Hokage walked out of his toilet feeling refreshed and ready for bed. He had a peaceful-looking grin on his face as he opened his door, only to be confronted by a huge poster of a beautiful young buxom girl in the nude blowing him a kiss. His eyes went wide, blood shot out of his nose, and he fell flat on his back. On either side of the girl was writing, "Beware the power." Mizuki gasped for breath as he leaned against Iruka's door. I saw Naruto leaving the village. He stole the scroll of the forbidden seal as a prank. The man looked shocked. What? We must warn the Hokage. He rushed off with a growing group of roused shinobi. Mizuki chuckled as he fell back. I'll spread the word a little more, get rid of Naruto, and take the scroll for myself. He's been gone most of the night with it already. It should be easy. Naruto was beaten and tired. He gasped for breath and popped his shoulders. His head lifted as he realized he could hear movement in the woods. He frowned and looked about. Mizuki had told him about a spot in the woods, and he'd gone the wrong direction. Time to get back. Ryu appeared behind him. Indeed, we've been following your new friend. It seems he wants to kill you, and take that thing for himself. You've learned what you need? The boy nodded. I can do it, no problem. The shinobi looked over his shoulder. We'll take the scroll back. Why don't you go and meet your friend? Oh, by the way, we've got a gift for you. Ken appeared at his other side and handed him a straight-edged katana. Careful, it's sharp. Naruto looked wary. I think this thing is important enough to get me in a lot of trouble if you screw around with it. Ryu backed off and nodded. Oh, well, it's time to put it back. You've got what you need, and the whole village is hot on it being missing. Your friend Mizuki stabbed you in the back and has them all worked up. The boy nodded and clutched the scroll to his chest. He jumped off into the darkness. Uzumaki Naruto smirked as he waited and watched. The first person who appeared in the clearing was Iruka. He was looking about and looked both frustrated and worried. What the older ninja didn't notice, but the boy could see, was that he had a shadow. Mizuki was above and behind him, with two oversized shuriken on his back. The boy stayed hidden and waited for them to move past the clearing. He dashed away behind them. Iruka looked into the shadows and saw a flash of blonde hair for a brief moment. What, Naruto? He went off after it, veering off and confusing Mizuki for a moment. He was about to move off after him. The boy appeared at his side. Hey, I've got what I want. You want something from this scroll too, right? He pointed over his shoulder at the oversized parchment. Mizuki almost jumped out of his skin and froze as the boy hopped back towards the clearing. He jumped down to the center and frowned as he noticed the boy leaning on it and looking quite casual. Give me the scroll. He looked quite serious and not very cheerful as he said it in a firm tone. The young cadet frowned and snorted. Sure, what the heck do you want with it anyway? The man got a wicked smirk on his face. Well, there's no point in lying, seeing as you seem to be willing to just hand it off. It's full of forbidden and dangerous ninjutsu. The boy shrugged and kicked it across the grass to the man. Mizuki picked it up, slapped it in his palm, and got an unpleasant grin on his face. You know about how 12 years ago they sealed up the demon fox? Naruto looked confused, and a bit of his attitude faded. Huh? The older shinobi gave him a dark-looking grin and looked him in the eyes. Since that day a special rule was made, but it was never meant to be told to you. The boy looked shocked. What is this rule? His face became angry as he glared at the man. It's that no one can tell you that you are the nine-tailed fox. You are the demon that killed Iruka's parents and destroyed the village. The man had a mad-looking grin on his face as he said it. I'm afraid I can't let you go back and tell everyone what's happened. You shouldn't mind much, everyone hates you anyway. Isn't it nice to finally know the reason? Naruto was shaking, his fist was clenched. So, then your plan was to use me to steal that scroll, frame me for it, and kill me once you've gotten it for yourself? His voice wavered. It explained so much about his life, it was all so simple. He was trying to hide his feelings on the matter, and his features shook a bit. That's right, what do you care anyway? Mizuki moved to strike with his weapon. No one will ever love you. This is why everyone hates you, let me end your pain. His face fell as he split a hunk of wood in half. Wah? Yeah, that was kind of stupid, and in case you've not noticed yet, you've been duped. The boy smirked and crossed his arms as he walked out of the edge of the clearing. Then, another one of him, and another, and another. Dozens of Uzumaki Naruto were coming out of the edge of the wood. I'm not real happy about hearing that, but it doesn't change that this is my home. He gave the man a rather angry-looking grin as he surrounded him on all sides. Maybe I don't care much for a lot of but I'll never become a ninja, or get their respect if I turn into a traitor like you. The worst part of all for Mizuki, was that each clone was followed by one of the shinobi from the village. What, you? The Hokage stepped forward and extended his hand. Another large scroll was hanging off his back. If you would be so kind, Mizuki. I would like my recipe for chili con carne back. You'll find it's not very valuable. Naruto nodded. Yeah, his chili con carne stinks. The old man's head whipped around to glare at the boy. The shaking and sweating Mizuki ripped open the scroll. Cheese, paprika, chili powder, diced tomatoes, refried beans. He fell to his knees. You. The young shinobi smirked as his clones vanished. Well, you did get everyone after me, so I just led them all here. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, and I'm going to be a great ninja. Iruka looked over at the Hokage and smirked. The old man gave a smile. The teacher called out to his student. Uzumaki, come over here, there's something I want to give you. The boy walked up to his teacher and grinned. Sure, close your eyes. Iruka had a cheerful grin. The boy was quiet, but nodded. He opened his eyes when prompted and smiled. Congratulations on graduating. Iruka was missing his forehead protector, and it was tied around Naruto's head. The boy looked over his shoulder. Mizuki was on his knees and being held in place forcibly behind the Hokage. He looked enraged and horrified. How? My plan was perfect. The boy shook his head. I never fell for it, you dope. Well, he had, but he wasn't going to admit to it. I knew all along I couldn't trust you. You're just a traitor, and now you'll be punished. He pulled down his eyelid and stuck out his tongue. Those around the field, most of them looked angry at Mizuki, but they were silent and surprised about Naruto. The Hokage coughed into his hand from beside the new graduate. I'll be watching your career with great interest, Uzumaki. Don't screw up, you've done well tonight, but I'm still watching you. It was half praise and half warning. Iruka smiled and ruffled his hair a bit. I'll buy you some ramen. Come on. The boy's face lit up, and he rushed off with his now former teacher. Ryu looked over his shoulder at Ken. Wow, the kid has some sort of demon sealed inside him. His compatriot looked pleased and they looked away from each other at nothing ahead of them. Cool, that information could prove useful later. Both men were looking straight ahead and not at each other as they said it. Yes, good call, my friend. Excellent. Ryu stuck up his thumb and winked, still facing nothing. Ken looked at his partner. Still, that is pretty awesome. The Hokage frowned as he looked at the hooded figure in the photo. He could see part of the boy's face, and a few strands of blonde hair poking out the front. He wasn't looking at the camera, and ended up with a good shot of what he was wearing. Black and dark gray pants, shirt, handguards, and shoes over a dark brown hood. He'd taken his scarf off his face as requested, but still avoided showing his face to the camera. It was the third photo the boy had given him, and it was the best yet. He didn't look at the boy standing in front of him and looked down at his rather empty profile. He liked ramen, and wanted to be a true ninja was the only thing written. He'd been such a bright and lively boy at one time. What happened to your forehead protector? It was painted black from the look of it. Naruto turned his eyes away and crossed his arms, looking very closed. Kind of hard to be sneaky with a big mirror strapped to your forehead. I took the shine out of it. It's still within the rules, isn't it? The old man nodded and put the boy's profile down. I suppose it is. I'd send you to get another photo, but I've a feeling it won't be any better than this. Care to explain? I'm going to accept it, I'm just curious. He put his hand on his cheek and leaned across the table, looking rather tired of dealing with it. Naruto's face flashed with a little surprise. Photos are memories. I'm not supposed to be one if I'm a ninja. Right? The Hokage's frown deepened a little, but he didn't reply. Old man, fight me. A young boy jumped into the room through the door and charged the desk where the Hokage was registering the new genin. The old man rolled his eyes and put his face into his hand. The boy tripped over his own feet and landed flat on his face. Damn it, who set a trap? Naruto remained in front of the chair with his arms crossed over his chest, watching in silence. An older shinobi he didn't know burst into the room just behind the boy. He was a tall, thin man sporting a pair of shades and an unpleasant frown. Are you all right? There is no trap. The boy rushed up to the older boy in front of the chair. The man who had followed him in took notice of who was in the room and his eyes grew cold. The young boy screeched at Uzumaki. It was you. You set the trap. Naruto chuckled as he noticed the cold-eyed stare the man was giving him. What if it was? Can you prove it? He put his hand against the boy's forehead and smirked. Cut it out. You were just clumsy. The boy's tutor, Ebisu, spoke up. Naruto, that's the Hokage's grandson. Let him go. You admit to setting that trap. How am I clumsy? The boy looked enraged, and was swinging out of his arm's reach and pushing his face against the older boy's palm. Naruto gave him a rather cheerful-looking grin and bopped him on top of his head. Well, you did fall for it. That was pretty clumsy of you, wasn't it? The boy stayed on his belly on the ground and rubbed on his head. It didn't hurt much, but he had felt it and was knocked down. Be more careful, and maybe one day you'll get to be a ninja too. Ebisu looked shocked. No way. The boy stood to his feet and shook his head to clear it. Who? The Hokage had a smirk on his face that was hidden behind his hand. The boy scratched his head. That guy. He's real strong, I can tell. The old man looked a bit surprised. Ebisu snorted and looked unimpressed. That fool is nothing of the kind. Come on, your grandfather is working. The young boy Naruto had met in his registration gasped in surprise. Hey, why the heck are you trying to follow me for anyway? The kid whirled around with a shocked expression on his face. He had been peering down an alley and had lost his target. Naruto was leaning against the wall behind him with his arms crossed. He was looking down at him from what would have been just over his shoulder. The boy almost jumped out of his skin. Don't do that. The older boy gave a sigh. Well, I am supposed to be a shinobi now after all. What's with you? The kid growled and clenched his fist. You defeated Grandpa with that enchanted poster on the wall outside the bathroom. Please, tell me this jutsu. Naruto looked confused. Enchanted poster? No, it was just a pretty naked girl. In a puff of smoke the girl in the picture was in front of him. See, like that. He's so old, his heart can't take it and he just keels over. Hey, the boy looked amazed. It's a powerful technique. You must show me, boss. So I can defeat him. The shinobi shrugged. I call it Wai no Jutsu. I guess you could learn it. It can be very dangerous if properly used. He looked quite serious and nodded. No. Naruto frowned and looked rather disgusted at the pudgy unattractive figure. Wire, smaller. You're supposed to look hot. The boy frowned. This is difficult, but I will prevail. I will defeat him. Uzumaki scratched his head and sighed. Yeah, why do you want to beat him anyway? His student sat himself down on a nearby log. My name is Konohamaru. I was named after the village, but still, no one remembers my name. All they see is the Hokage's grandson. I want the Hokage title because of that. No one sees me as me, and I'm sick of it. His boss chuckled and shook his head. So, you think a brat like you can just take something like that? The boy looked shocked. What? Naruto looked at him with a dangerous-looking grin on his face. If you really want to be a great ninja, and become Hokage, no one can see you do it. If you want to be noticed, go be a samurai because you're no good as a shinobi. You're just dead weight, bringing attention to your brothers and sisters where it doesn't belong. Our way is not to be noticed. He stood up and put his hands in his pockets. The life of a shinobi is a life of service. Even for someone like the Hokage I've heard. Though, I dunno what the heck that old fart does to serve anyone. The boy looked annoyed. Grandpa isn't a servant. Uzumaki shrugged. Yeah, that's what I said. That old jerk. Seems it's one of those, you'll get it when you're older, things. He looked annoyed as well. I wonder if you just suddenly get stuff on your birthday at some point when you're older? I'm not really sure. Konohamaru mulled on it as well. Kind of like pubes? Maybe that's it? Naruto got a little wide-eyed. What are pubes? The boy shrugged. It's something that happens when you're older. Grandpa says you get more hair, and that stuff gets stiff sometimes, your voice goes screwy, and you have to get an oil change on your face or something, and something to do with girls I think. Uzumaki sat down and crossed his legs. Well, maybe? Girls? I like girls now though. I think anyway. There are girls in my class that are pretty cute. He didn't want to get more specific, but a girl named Sakura Haruno popped into his mind as he thought about it. Konohamaru shuddered. Yeah, it's supposed to make you like M and stuff. Maybe that's when you get stuff. I heard some older boys talking, girls can give you something. They never said what it was. They just said they were going to get some of whatever it is. Naruto seemed to lose interest in the subject. I guess we'll just have to wait until our next birthday and see what happens. Might take a while before either one of us figures it out. He decided to change the subject to something less confusing. Yeah, well, if you're going to be Hokage, you're gonna have to be stronger than me. The boy frowned at him. What? The older boy noticed Ebisu approaching. Great, this guy again. He was giving him a cold hard glare, one he was familiar with. The man hopped down from a nearby tree branch and called to Konohamaru. Now, young master, let's go home. The boy turned to face him looking enraged. No, I'm gonna defeat that old fart and take the Hokage title. I don't need weight on any stupid pubes to do it. I'm smart enough to understand without M. Naruto's face fell as he seemed to think about that. I guess. I'm still not sure what the heck that means. Ebisu was confused and faced the older boy. What have you been filling his head with? He jabbed his finger at the Hokage's grandson. A Hokage must be a master of all aspects of shinobi. You've got to master 1,000 different skills, and then finally. Konohamaru growled, take this Why no jutsu. The boy performed the jutsu exactly as he should have, and a pretty naked girl was standing in his place. The man wasn't impressed. What a perverted skill. It would never work on a gentleman like myself. He grabbed the boy by his scarf and started to try dragging him off. Konohamaru fought back and pulled the other way. Hang out with trash like him, and you'll become stupid. I'm your easiest shortcut to becoming Hokage. Really? Are you sure about that? The man froze and looked over his shoulder. A beautiful girl was leaning against his back in the nude. Another appeared at his side. Yeah, I mean, you're saying you've got some sort of secret shortcut to becoming Hokage? Ebisu went pale and worked his jaw as two more grabbed his shoulders and gently plucked Konohamaru's scarf from his fingers. Yeah, why didn't he use it himself then? Both of them bounced with cheer and spoke at the same time. Another slid across his chest as two more grabbed his legs. Yeah, the unfortunate man's head whipped around and realized the entire clearing was full of buxom naked young girls who all looked the same. Blood shot from his nose, and he hit the back of his head on the dirt. Naruto stood looking down at the man with a smirk on his face, and a wallet in his hand. Hey, dope. Konohamaru was in awe. Wow, that was great, boss. You defeated my tutor. The older boy seemed to remember he was there. Yeah, well, remember this. Shinobi shouldn't look for acknowledgement. If that's what you're looking for, you're not doing it right. He looked ahead towards the village. If you want to become Hokage, there aren't going to be any shortcuts. You've got to become a great shinobi first, and I've got a head start. The boy clenched his fist at the grinning Naruto. One day, I'm going to challenge you for the title of Hokage. You're not my boss anymore, from now on, we're rivals. He turned and rushed away. I look forward to it. The older boy smirked and shook his head. He's not so bad. Reminds me of how I used to be. Ebisu growled as he patted down his clothes. He was standing at the ramen booth searching for his wallet. What the? His eyes went wide. No way. His frantic pats slowed as a slow dawning came across his face. It can't be. He'd gone very pale. The man at the counter frowned. What? Don't tell me someone lifted your wallet. Ebisu flushed and gritted his teeth. Yeah, sorry. You know I'm good for it. I work for the Hokage, tutoring his son. I'll bring it. The man shrugged and smirked. Forget about it. The man pushed his glasses up his nose. Thanks. He was still very pale. His weapons were gone, every last one of them, all his kunai knives, shuriken, darts, blowgun, a few sorted scrolls, flash powder. The only thing he had on him at all was his uniform. Impossible. I'm an elite. There's just no way that brat could have. Naruto chuckled as he unloaded a pile of weapons and assorted shinobi gear onto his floor just inside his door and dusted off his hands. Hey, that jerk. Serves him right, making fun of Why no jutsu. Soon, all will know of its true power. Now he had harem no jutsu as well. Naruto was sitting in the back corner of the class, in a shadowy corner, with only his head on top of his desk. He was sending a frown towards Sasuke Uchiha, and it got worse as Sakura Haruno sat down right beside him, and started trying to flirt with him. That dope. I hate him. He muttered it under his breath, and even the two people next to him didn't notice him. Sakura was hot, in his opinion. Most of the other boys seemed to think she was only average. There was something about her that caught his attention. He believed the appropriate term to use was that he wanted to bone her. He was pretty sure he did, but he wasn't exactly sure what bone would be involved, or what he would do with it. He wasn't even certain if he would be using one of his bones or hers. He wanted some of that though. Whatever the hell it was. Iruka walked to the front of the class with a clipboard. You will soon be given missions to help the village. You will all be split into 3-man teams, each with a Junin instructor. You will listen to your sensei to complete your missions. We did our best to balance each team's strength. Naruto snorted as the class sounded surprised. He didn't know it, but it wasn't the shock to him that it was for everyone else. He was there, and whatever he had to do to stay there was fine. Whatever, anyone but Uchiha Sakura would be nice. If I could get her pride off that jerk's side for a bit I could. He wasn't sure what to do, but he'd figure it out. Iruka read through some of the list, and called out his team before continuing on. Team 7. Uzumaki Naruto, Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke. Naruto's head dropped, Sakura cheered, and Sasuke was just as dead to the world as always. What a loser. To not be seen was one thing, but to sit in the open and act like no one sees you, and you can't see them was just plain prickishness. It was the worst case scenario in his mind. He kept his mouth shut and glared at the Uchiha boy. Great, gotta get rid of him. Sakura was looking about the room. Who the hell is Uzumaki Naruto? The blonde boy almost fell off his seat. Sasuke glanced over at her. He's the wimpy emo kid in the back of the class dressed in all black. You know, the only one who failed the exam in class? He jerked his thumb at Naruto's corner. The girl looked over. I don't see. She knew everyone she could see. Where? The coward is probably hiding. He's not very good at anything, and nobody talks to him. Whenever there's trouble, he just disappears. I'm amazed he passed. Uchiha kept his dead-eyed stare forward and his hands folded. I'm probably stuck with him no matter who they put between us. Naruto stayed silent, clutched at his arms and growled under his hood. I'm gonna kick his ass. Iruka-sensei said that the teams are supposed to be balanced. Sakura looked at Sasuke, being very pleased he was speaking to her. So, you were the best in the class, so that makes him. Sasuke gave a nod and spoke in an even tone. Dead last. Naruto was hurting his own arms, he was gripping them so hard and glaring ahead with his mouth shut. You're going to suffer, Uchiha. Iruka gave a small sigh. You'll be introduced to your Junin soon. Take a break until then. He knew how angry Naruto was, but Sasuke and Sakura couldn't tell. There wasn't much he could do about it, but he had a feeling Uchiha and Haruno were going to be getting into some sort of trouble soon. Naruto chuckled as he pulled Sasuke through a window. He caught the boy by surprise, which wasn't much of one to him. The boy had been finishing up his lunch. What the? By the time Sasuke turned to see who it was too late. He was being tied up by himself. His eyes went even wider as the familiar click of handcuffs sounded. His mouth was taped over before he could react. He stayed on his side and glared at himself in anger as his own face grinned at him. Sasuke's face fell as his double dropped his pants, revealing what almost looked like someone's little toe between what would seem to be his legs. His double hopped out the window and shrieked in a high-pitched girlish way. Eek! Someone has stolen my pants. No, my horrible secret revealed to all. Wah! Sasuke's struggles grew stronger and stronger as his face went red and his eyes wide. He tugged and tossed himself about in a rage. He struggled to call out and froze as he realized what he could hear. Sasuke-kun, I thought you might like to eat, Haruno's voice came from outside. No, the irritating girl knows now. Sasuke's struggles slowed, he closed his eyes as the pressure grew. More and more voices were joining in the chaos. The whole village. Oh no. Oh, stomach trouble, Sasuke didn't want to know what was causing some of the noises he was hearing. The village was becoming much more aware of the problem by that point. It sounded like someone was spraying something about the ground and walls near the window. The mini rocket has been launched. Voices calling out his name, and laughter could be heard from below. Say, isn't that Uchiha? What the hell is he doing? Gross. Are you kidding? That is so funny. The Uchiha boy fumbled with the needle between his fingers as he worked at the handcuff locks. His eyes became bloodshot as he tried to keep from rushing himself. He was desperate. Look, through that window. Sasuke glared at his pants less double as he hopped over him and turned about. Hey, I found my pants. My embarrassment is finally over. Now the whole village knows my shameful secret though. He turned and dashed off through the building. The handcuffs and ropes fell away as the Uchiha boy freed himself, staggered to his feet and gave chase. He looked about and found himself looking at two shinobi. He frowned at them. Hey, did anyone else come out of here? One looked at the other and both shook their heads. Just you kid. The boy froze, he turned his head. Sakura Haruno was red as a beet. Several other genin were standing about snickering behind her. Sasuke. One of the several snickering boys spoke up as most of the group moved off and spread out. See you later, Mini Rocket. Sakura turned very red, she looked very embarrassed, and rather speechless. She kept giving him glances. Her inner self was breathing a sigh of relief. Phew, better to find out now, I guess. He's cute, but he's not that cute. Uchiha growled and clenched his fist. When I find out who that was, I'm going to kill them. He glared at Sakura. That wasn't me. Someone ambushed me, and used Henge no Jutsu to impersonate me. The girl gasped. What? Sasuke-kun, are you okay? The boy brushed her off. When I find out. Sakura seemed saddened. I'm sorry. I believe you, Sasuke-kun, but no one saw anyone but you here. They didn't come this way, and the only other way out of that place I saw was that window on the other side. Her inner mind was less sympathetic. Yes, this is great. If all the other girls think he's really like that, I'll have him all to myself. She didn't have to try too hard to fake feeling bad for him. Sasuke gave a rough snort and seemed to calm. It doesn't matter. I'm leaving. It's not that big, eh? What's that smell? Uchiha went rather pale as he rounded the corner, found several angry-looking Junin standing about a very large and spread-out mess. What the? Well, it wasn't just that you didn't have pants and that it was very small. You also had explosive diarrhea. Sasuke's jaw dropped. What? The girl was pink. It looked like you were running around with your crotch forward, messing up the ground, and calling yourself a mini rocket. He glared at her. It wasn't me. He dropped his pants. See? I'm normal, damn it. Sakura flushed and backed away with a hint of a grin on her face. Inner Sakura cheered. And now I'm the only one who knows. Oh, Sasuke. You have shared this tender secret with me. Sasuke shivered, turned his head, and realized the Junin all looked mad at him. He dashed around the corner and rushed off, leaving Sakura standing there. The girl gave a heavy sigh and held her nose. This is the weirdest day of my life. Where the heck is that teammate of ours anyway? I still don't know who the hell Naruto Uzumaki is. She shuffled off away from the scene as the Junin rushed away after Sasuke. She finally had Sasuke where she wanted him. Weird or not, it was the best day of her life so far. Kakashi. The Hokage nodded at the Junin instructor who was lifting a box of milk off an empty table. So, this is where Naruto Uzumaki lives? The man had his forehead protector cocked over one of his eyes, and a mask covering his face. He seemed very relaxed and kicked at the pile of weapons by the door. This milk went out of date a few days ago. The old man puffed on his pipe. Yes, he was at the bottom of his class. I think giving him to you is best. I've a nose for this sort of thing. Your team will also include Sasuke, of the Uchiha clan. The Junin looked over his shoulder and gave a sigh. Yes, sir. He had a feeling there was something the Hokage wasn't mentioning. Sakura frowned as she sat across from Sasuke near the door to the classroom. Our Junin sensei is late. She turned to look at the figure sitting on the opposite side of the room. So that's Uzumaki then? Sasuke turned his head towards the boy. Yeah, that's him. The boy in question was silent, and looked like he might be sleeping. His legs were kicked up on top of the desk he was sitting at, his arms were crossed, and his hood covered his lowered head. He didn't move or react like he could hear them. The girl looked annoyed. I wish I could just relax that way. The dark-haired boy shook his head. Whatever. The girl looked a bit annoyed with Naruto. Is he just going to sit there? He hasn't said anything to either one of us yet. Fine by me. Uchiha sounded a bit annoyed that the girl was still talking. She didn't seem to notice. Naruto turned his head and smirked at her. The girl flushed and turned her head towards the door. Huh? He's awake? An unfamiliar shinobi walked through the door, only to have an eraser bounce off the top of his head and create a cloud of dust. Sakura and Sasuke both looked surprised. Hey, who did? The girl worked her jaw. Kakashi looked at the pair on either side of him by the door, and over at the boy sitting on his own. Uchiha and Haruno both looked a bit surprised. Uzumaki was sitting on the other side of the room, looking like he hadn't been paying attention to anything before the man had entered. His hood turned to face him. The Junin seemed to smile at them and rubbed on his mask-covered chin. How can I say this? My first impression is, I don't like you guys. A short time later, the newly formed Genin team was sitting around their instructor on a balcony. They were outside, it was a beautiful day, and the three junior ninja were sitting in front of Kakashi. He was leaning against the railing and spoke to them all. Sakura was looking a little uncomfortable between Sasuke and Uzumaki. She was leaning towards the Uchiha boy, and seemed a little creeped out by the shadowy figure she'd not gotten a clear look at yet. He kept his head low, and she'd not been able to get a good look at his face. Kakashi got their attention when he started speaking. "All right, we'll introduce ourselves. Tell me your likes, dislikes, dreams, hobbies. That sort of thing." The girl hugged her knees. "You look kind of suspicious." Naruto and Sasuke both looked away from him and didn't say anything. The man gave a small sigh. "All right, I'll start then. My name is Hitaki Kakashi. I have no desire to tell you my likes and dislikes. Dreams for the future? I have lots of hobbies." "All right, your turn. We'll start on the right." Sakura looked a bit annoyed. "So, all he told us was his name." Naruto grinned and the girl gasped. It was the first time she'd really seen him move his head up. "I like this guy." He stood up and dusted off his legs. "I'm Uzumaki Naruto. I like ramen, and dreams are for sleeping." Both his teammates looked over at him. It was the most he'd said that day to any of them. "Who is this kid?" Sakura seemed unimpressed. Sasuke snorted. "Guess it's my turn. I'm Uchiha Sasuke. I have lots of dislikes, but nothing I really like. I guess I can't really call it a dream, but I have an ambition. The resurrection of my clan, and to kill a certain man." Kakashi nodded. Sakura seemed to think it was very cool and impressive. Naruto reacted, more than he'd seen the boy react yet. He clawed at the dirt beside him and growled a bit as his head turned towards Uchiha. Sakura started. "I'm Haruno Sakura. What I like is… the person I like is…" The Junin pretty much ignored her after hearing her name. She just became flushed and fluttered about her thoughts. Kakashi could almost imagine flowers and magic sparkles floating about in her head. Naruto gave another unpleasant-sounding grumble and shifted a bit further away from both of them. The instructor looked over at him and then towards the group again. "Tomorrow, we begin our duties as shinobi. We'll do something with just the four of us." Sakura spoke up. "What's that?" Kakashi focused his gaze on her. "Survival training." This caught all three of them by surprise. "Survival training?" Even Naruto voiced his confusion. "Yes, I will be your opponent." The instructor chuckled. "You're all going to freak out." Sakura looked to be the most interested. "Freak out? Why?" Kakashi leaned towards them. "Of the 27 graduates, only 9 will be chosen as genin. The rest will be sent back to the academy. This training is a difficult exam, with a failure rate of 66%. Naruto looked at his two companions and then back at the instructor. He gave a small shrug. Sasuke narrowed his eyes a little more, and Sakura looked shocked. The girl turned her head towards the silent Naruto. Uchiha didn't look worried. Naruto seemed about as interested as he was. "Great." Sakura was glaring daggers at the boy she didn't know. "What? I've got to make sure I stay with Sasuke." Uzumaki spoke up. "We graduated, didn't we?" He was going to become a shinobi with or without Kakashi's help. He didn't care much, and kept giving irate glances at his teammates. The instructor nodded. "Yes, that only gives you the chance to become genin." He stood up and dusted off his legs. "You'll have to show your real skills tomorrow. Bring all the shinobi tools you have. Don't eat anything, or you might throw up." He held out a page to them. "The details are here. Don't be late." Naruto sat in front of the door to his home with his arms crossed, looking rather bored. "Any tips for tomorrow?" Ryu chuckled. "Nope, you're on your own." Ken's voice seemed to agree. "Yeah, we're not going to help you cheat through your training." "Sorry." The boy nodded. "Whatever. I wonder what it's about." Ryu seemed to think on it a moment. "It's probably some sort of scam to trick you into trying your hardest. He's probably supposed to find out how strong you are." Ken agreed again. "Yeah, so he knows where he needs to focus his training and all." Naruto gave a small sigh. "Couldn't he just ask?" Ryu chuckled as his voice faded. "Would you tell him?" The boy stood up and walked into his home. Point taken. Sakura Haruno stood next to Sasuke alone. The boy looked annoyed. Sakura was chatting with him, despite his lack of responses. The girl had a huge grin on her face and was glad to be alone with him. The genin Kunoichi spoke up. "Our instructor is late." The boy beside her snorted. "So is Uzumaki." The pink-haired girl grinned and nodded. "Yeah, she was just glad to be alone with him, but couldn't think of anything to say. Actually, he's been sitting right over your head the whole time." "Good morning." Kakashi waved as he walked up to them looking cheerful. Both children looked up, finding a leg hanging down from a tree branch just over their heads. Naruto looked relaxed, and hopped down behind and between them. Much like their instructor, he had a scarf over his face. He spoke to both of his fellow genin. Kakashi-sensei wasn't late. He's been here for a while now, watching us from the brush line over there. The boy nodded his head towards a row of bushes about 20 yards away. Kakashi glanced at him, put a timer on a nearby stump, and started it. Okay, it's set for noon. The children looked on and didn't speak. Here are 2 bells. Your task is to take them for me before the time is up. Naruto snorted and looked away. Uchiha and Haruno both tensed up and glared at the man. The instructor seemed to notice that Uzumaki looked very relaxed. Kakashi continued his explanation. The one who doesn't get a bell gets no lunch. In fact, I'll tie you to a stump and eat it right in front of you. So, that's why he didn't want us to eat. Sasuke muttered under his breath. The instructor continued. There are only 2, so one of you will definitely be tied to the stump. If you don't get a bell, you fail. You won't succeed unless you come at me intending to kill. You may use shuriken and kunai knives. Sakura expressed a bit of worry. But, you'll be in danger. Naruto snorted. Yeah, right. You really think you could kill him? Don't be stupid. The girl's head whipped around and glared at the rather cold-looking figure. Naruto wasn't looking at either one of his fellow students. You think you can? He turned his head away from her. You're missing the point, I think. What? How dare you? You jerk. The girl's forehead pulsed as veins poked out as she became enraged. Kakashi gave a small sigh. Yes, well, those who have the least skill often bark the loudest. You're awful confident for someone who graduated at the bottom of his class. Sakura glanced at Uchiha and thought to herself. If only 2 of us can pass, I'd better make sure it's myself and Sasuke. She didn't notice Naruto take notice of the look on her face and frown. Sasuke nodded in agreement. Yeah, dead last at that. Naruto turned his back on them all and fumed. Fine, we'll see which of us gets a bell before we start talking about who's a loser and who isn't. The girl growled at him and looked confident. No way that coward is gonna beat me. I've got my future with Sasuke assured. Uchiha stood with his arms crossed and said nothing. Well, we'll see how well you do. Begin. Kakashi relaxed as the children vanished. Naruto gave a small sigh as he stretched his arms and put them behind his head. He was sitting on a tree branch, well hidden, and watching Sakura and Sasuke lay about on the ground in the bushes. He said nothing and waited. Kakashi stood in the center of the clearing. The most important thing for a shinobi is hiding yourself. He glanced over to where Sakura and Sasuke were hiding in the bushes, on opposite sides of him. They're hidden very well. I've still not spotted Uzumaki. Where the hell is he? His eyes searched about the clearing, looking for his 3rd student. The other 2 were waiting for an opening. Did he leave? I've heard he's a bit of a coward. Didn't seem the type for that though. He's here. Uzumaki Naruto, very interesting. He could hear the 2 genin he knew about gasp as he put his hand into his pocket. I wonder how long I'll have to wait for the deadline to draw them out. He pulled out a copy of ContraBardus and sat down in the middle of the clearing to wait. Sasuke growled. Great. He brought a book. I can't stay here all day. Uzumaki has vanished, no surprise there. So it looks like it's going to have to be my move. Naruto, who was right behind him, smirked. He didn't stay in one place much. His tutors had instilled the importance of being able to move unseen by one's target. They had taught him patience and how to manipulate things in his favor. He slid away. Sasuke was working himself up to make his move, and never noticed him. A moment later, he was behind Sakura. He frowned at her. She was pretty, but she'd been a bit of a brat as well. He was hanging on the side of a tree, just over her and watching the field where the instructor sat. He needed Kakashi to be moving and occupied, and he had a feeling Sasuke alone wouldn't do the job. Careful, Sasuke. Sakura was worried. She could see her classmate moving up behind the instructor with a kunai in his grip. He was prowling forward, almost like a cat, stalking the man. Kakashi's eyes moved to the right as he turned the page in his book. Naruto jumped from his perch, threw 2 kunai as he landed behind Sakura, and kicked her in the rear, sending her stumbling out of her cover. She also shrieked in surprise, and looked on in shock as both weapons took the instructor dead in the side of his head. Sasuke's jaw dropped as the hunk of wood with 2 kunai embedded in it fell over in front of him. What? She gave me up? That little bitch. The girl's head turned towards him. It wasn't me. The boy was busy as he turned and slashed. Kakashi backed away with ease, and blocked a flurry of slashes, punches, and kicks. Sasuke committed to a punch, but his opponent was gone. A moment later he was on his back, with Kakashi pinning him down. Uchiha growled as he glared at Sakura. "You need one of those bells yourself, you know. Don't expect me to look out for you after you gave me up." Kakashi spun around, slashing with his kunai. He jumped back and looked surprised, but confused. "What the?" There was nothing there. Sakura rushed forward, realizing he was thrown off for some reason. His arm moved up and blocked a kick as she assaulted him. She liked using her legs, and the bulk of her attacks were kicks of some sort. She spun around in the air a few times as she launched herself at him. A soft push from his palm into her belly landed her on the ground. She frowned at him and rubbed the back of her head for a moment. He tossed a kunai knife away from either of his students, and it impacted the side of a tree on the other end of the clearing, seeming to accomplish nothing. Sasuke noticed he seemed to be ignoring them. What is he up to? He knew he needed to keep pressing. His legs pumped as he rushed towards him. He rushed at the man's back, and ended up punching Sakura dead in the face. He didn't give it a second glance as he spun into a kick aimed at the Junin's head. Sakura was down, out cold. A genjutsu victim, the result of seeing a vision of Sasuke with mortal wounds. Kakashi was in control of the battle, of course. He'd separated the pair easily, after getting bored with the pair's strategy of wearing him out, one after the other. The Uchiha boy was glaring at the girl on the ground. Kakashi was reading his book against the trunk of a tree. Genjutsu, a form of hypnotism, she'd fall for that. I'm not like her though. The instructor turned his page again. Say that after you've got a bell, Uchiha. The village's most powerful clan. This should be interesting. Kakashi put his book away and stood facing the Uchiha boy. Sasuke charged forward, throwing out powerful and fast blows that were all blocked. This time, it took a little effort from the Junin to hold the strikes back. The pair jumped apart, Sasuke throwing knives and shuriken at the older ninja. The younger ninja took to the air, throwing punches and kicks, while making grabs for the dangling orbs on the man's uniform. Each time, he missed. Sakura Haruno's eyes snapped open for the second time that day. The last thing she remembered was finding Sasuke's severed head on the ground. She turned and saw the boy sitting next to her. She frowned and turned up her nose. He'd hit her about 6 times that day. It didn't even slow him down once. The timer had expired, and they both had their heads hung low. Both of them had failed. Kakashi crossed his arms and looked at the pair. He was about to speak up, but Naruto Uzumaki jumped down on top of the stone between the meals with a grin on his face. He looked between the other two genin and grinned. Game's over then, is it? Where have you been? The hooded boy realized that question was coming from 3 places at once. He shrugged. I've been here all day, winning this little game of his. Have you got a bell? Kakashi leveled his gaze on the boy. No. Naruto crossed his legs and shook his head. Then how do you figure you won? The instructor looked annoyed. The Uzumaki boy seemed pleased with himself. Because both of them have bells in their pockets. You've been carrying around 2 rocks tied to some string for most of the day. You kept hearing them because they were nearby, so you didn't think anything of it. Kakashi was looking at the rocks hanging from the strings on his fingers. Huh? They've both got bells, and I had to go back to the academy, right? I'd just as soon get rid of these 2 losers anyway. The black-clad figure jerked his thumb towards Sasuke. Mr. Avenger, here. The minute his duty gets in the way of his revenge, he'll stab the whole village in the back. I'd rather not be the one standing next to him when it happens. She's more interested in finding a boyfriend than being a ninja. He punched her in the face like 6 times, and she's still trying to flirt with him now. Look. Sakura went red and took her eyes off Sasuke's jawline and neck to glare at him. What? Naruto looked down at Sasuke. I'll take my chances next year. I'm going to be a great shinobi. The Uchiha clan won't be the strongest in the village forever. Someday, it will be the Uzumaki clan. The pink-haired girl gasped. That was cool. Who the hell is this guy again? She looked up at Kakashi. The teacher wasn't moving, and just looked at the blonde boy squatting over the food. Explain how you did this. When Sasuke made his move, I forced Haruno out of cover and into the fight. Naruto shrugged. I hung out nearby, waited for the fight to get near me, Switch the bells for those 2 rocks. I kept following the fight, and slipped the bells onto these 2 when you knocked them down close to where I was. After that, I just hung back and waited for the timer to run out. If I'd told you we got the bells sooner, you'd have turned it around and told us we had to keep them until time runs out. The Junin nodded. I see. You forced them to work together. They both forgot about you, and each saw a bell of their own. Clever. Once you stopped influencing things, they fell apart. Naruto seemed surprised. Huh? Really? I guess that's sort of how it worked. I'm not very good with that sort of thing really. He pulled his hood off and grinned. It was fun though. Challenging me to steal something was a bad idea. You weren't expecting any of us to get our hands on those. Kakashi scratched his head. I guess you've seen through my little ruse one way or another. His real thoughts were another matter. I'm gonna have to talk with the Hokage about this one. How can this be? I've never seen anyone so young so advanced. Bottom of his class indeed. How could anyone miss this? What the hell is going on? Who is this kid? Where did he learn all this? Sakura looked confused. So Sasuke and I, pass, right? She jingled her bell. The Uchiha boy had been staring at the bell in his palm in shock for quite some time. His fingers closed around it in a fist when the girl said it. Yeah, well, you ain't tying me to no stumps if I didn't. I'm gonna go get some ramen. The blonde boy pulled his hood back over his head. No need Uzumaki. Why didn't you just keep the bells yourself? The man cocked his head and scratched at his skin as he approached the stone. The boy looked up at him and grinned. Huh? I can pass that stupid exam at the academy no problem now. I could never get past the Bunshin no Jutsu. I'm gonna be a true shinobi, a servant, a weapon, and a shadow. Kakashi nodded. You understand that means being part of a team. Yeah, I work well with others. Better than that dork Sasuke. I'm gonna get you for slapping her around later on, Mr. Mini Rocket. Hey, Naruto was more experienced than anyone there, including him, realized. Some of the pranks on the village he'd been a part of were quite elaborate, and required more than one man, or a coordinated effort on more than one front. Kakashi gave a heavy sigh. I think I get it now. Naruto appeared to be some sort of shinobi genius, but he was very immature. It was almost like he didn't know it, despite the fact that someone seemed to let him in on it at some point. Who trained you? Kakashi looked down at the boy. Huh? You don't know Iruka-sensei? The blonde kid looked up at him, and hopped over Sasuke as he attacked. The Uchiha boy ended up tackling Sakura. He almost ended up lips first on her face, but jerked to a stop just short. Naruto had grabbed the back of his shirt and tossed him aside, leaving behind one annoyed and flustered girl. Quit being a jerk. If you try and stab me in the back, I'm gonna be the one who walks away. Kakashi nodded. I know enough to realize you didn't learn all that from him. Naruto chuckled. I thought everyone knew. I've got 2 invisible friends. They're teaching me how to be invisible too. They aren't gonna talk to you if you're not good enough to find M on her own. I already told the Hokage and everything. Everyone was looking at him with wide eyes. Kakashi gave a nod. You've passed. You're the first ones ever. Beginning tomorrow, Team 7 begins its duty. He turned away. He needed to have a chat with the Hokage about this. Naruto's victory was inconvenient. Now he had to write some sort of stupid speech to get them to learn the lessons they were supposed to. He was going to have a tougher time with the Uzumaki boy than he'd thought. The weirdest possible place. What the hell was wrong with Iruka for failing this kid 2 times? Something was going on with Naruto Uzumaki, and he now had plenty of time to figure it out. Kakashi stood in the Hokage's chambers with his arms crossed over his chest. We need to talk. Iruka was standing in the corner with his arms crossed looking on over the conversation. The old man was peering over several scrolls. He didn't seem very surprised and looked up at the Junin. About what? Naruto. The boy's Junin instructor seemed calm and serious. What has he done now? The old man gave a small sigh. He beat me. The Hokage nodded. They are the first group to pass your little test. I admit. The Junin interrupted and shook his head. No, you don't understand. He beat me. If he'd wanted me dead, I'm not so sure I'd be standing here now. I never even saw him do it. How did Iruka fail him? Is he incompetent? I'd say he's the strongest genin I've ever seen. The boy's former instructor pushed himself out of his lean and uncrossed his arms. What? Kakashi ignored him and leaned over the Hokage's desk. He looked the old man dead in his eyes. Naruto Uzumaki isn't some green kid. You know about my test. I had to get it approved. He got both bells away from me, I never saw him do it. I didn't even know until. The Hokage returned his glare with a frown on his face. His attention was off the scrolls on his desk and he had his hands folded just under his nose. He what? Iruka snorted. You were careless then. He's not very smart. The old man turned his eyes towards the academy instructor. Do you really think that's true? The youngest shinobi in the room shrugged. I can bring you his scores if you'd like. I tested him fairly. I've still got his records. Kakashi shook his head. I've seen them. I went over all 3 of their records. What Naruto Uzumaki knows, he didn't learn from you. Iruka started to look a bit angry. What are you saying? The Hokage shook his head and closed his eyes. Then where did he learn them? He's got no one. The Junin stood tall and crossed his arms again. His 2 invisible friends aren't as imaginary as you seem to think. Something is going on with that boy. He could have killed me. A Chunin like Iruka would stand no chance against him. He's not a genin level shinobi. He's far more skilled. In fact, I'm not sure how good he really is. The boy's former instructor frowned and turned his head away. He's immature, his control of chakra is poor, and the only thing he seems to be any good at is taijutsu, and he's shown no real exceptional talent there. The Hokage gave a heavy sigh. Kakashi is correct. The boy is a genius. Who do you think our village's invisible prankster is? We can't prove anything, but I've known for some time. We've not been able to catch him in a year and a half. The Junin nodded. I see. I don't think he's acting alone. There is someone else involved. The old man nodded. I suspect that is true. However, we can prove nothing. You are welcome to present any evidence you find on just who these invisible friends of his are. Iruka gasped. What? His eyes grew wide and he looked worried. If that's true, the village could be in danger. The Hokage gave a heavy sigh. What do you expect us to do? Uzumaki has told me of this. Not even he could bring them to us if they do not want to be found. I've seen nothing that indicates that they intend to harm our village. Kakashi nodded. Can we take that risk? The old man lit his pipe and leaned back in his seat. Yes, we can. Both men looked shocked at that. Iruka stomped his foot and balled up his fist. What? Are you joking? Kakashi shook his head. You can't be serious. He turned his eyes towards the door. Uzumaki should be questioned. If he's fallen under the influence of a spy, it could mean. The Hokage looked at them both from under the brim of his hat. I'm afraid that I am. Do you intend to try and capture Uzumaki? It would take but a moment of carelessness and he would vanish. Plus, we would risk angering 2 powerful shinobi, who no one in this village has even had the skill to spot once. For what? A threat that has not presented itself as anything more than a minor annoyance? Kakashi looked a little pale. What should I do? Keep him with me, and make him even stronger than he is now? Possibly give away our village's secrets too. The old man grinned at him. Yes, that's exactly what you'll do. He seemed to settle in his chair. If these invisible friends of his are real, they've had plenty of time, and more than enough skill to discover such things. If it is true, it is already too late. The Junin staggered back a step in surprise. Huh? Iruka looked just as shocked, but said nothing and hung his head. The Hokage puffed on his pipe and blew a cloud of smoke into the air as he sighed. You're not seeing what this could mean for our village. Whoever his friends are, they are teaching him this skill. Do you understand? Iruka hung his head with his eyes wide. You mean? One day, he too will become a Junin. I have little doubt of this. He will take students and train them, just as Kakashi will train him. As he said, his control of chakra is poor, he is immature and unexperienced. He has no friends, no family. He will remain a genin for now. He needs the training, however great his skill is. He needs teammates to help him grow. The old man stood up and put his palms on his desktop. He told me he wishes to become a great shinobi. I may one day regret it, but I see no reason not to believe him. To put it in his own words, a servant, a weapon, and a shadow. His former instructor nodded as his features calmed. He knows most of the village doesn't like him, yet. The boy's words on the night the traitor Mizuki was captured came to him again. He said them out loud and looked as he looked at both the men in the room with a strange smile forming on his lips. Maybe I don't care much for a lot of them, but I'll never become a ninja, or get their respect if I turn into a traitor. Kakashi seemed to think on that. I see. He works well on a team already. Much more than I expected from a genin. He's very observant. He noticed when Sakura gave Sasuke away. I heard her muttering in the bushes while he was trying to sneak up on me. I'm pretty sure I gave myself away. He nodded. He used them both, but did it by forcing them to work as a team. He tricked them into doing it, though he claims he didn't realize it. Iruka seemed confused. What do you mean? The Junin looked at his former instructor. I was waiting for them to make their move, reading a book. Uchiha was sneaking up on me from behind, and he forced Haruno out of her cover when he realized I had noticed him. I was using the book to appear inattentive, and turned the page before I'd finished reading it. I'm pretty sure it's what gave me away. I wasn't expecting a genin, especially one who was at the bottom of his class, to be so observant. The Hokage nodded. Yes. Well, we can't prove that his new friends are anything but imaginary. They've left no signs of their presence in the village, or the area around it that we've discovered. I suspect they appeared about 2 years ago. A long time for someone who intends to do us harm to wait. I do not suspect they are enemies, but I also don't think we should let our guard down. We do not know them, or their intent. Uzumaki seems to be the best way to keep an eye on them. We have no other leads, and forcing his hand could prove more dangerous than you two yet realize. He puffed on his pipe and looked back and forth between the pair in the room with him. I've sent Oinin to seek this mysterious pair out on several occasions. They found nothing in the village, or in the surrounding wilderness to indicate they even exist. Even if they are real, there is little we can do if we cannot find them. Teaching the young Uzumaki what they have, only serves to lessen my concern. Though, I admit it is still there. Both men were standing in a relaxed posture. Kakashi nodded, and Iruka turned away from them both. Kakashi rubbed on his chin. That worries me. The Hokage turned his eyes back down to the scroll again. Team 7 will begin taking D-ranked missions tomorrow. There is little we can do but watch and wait. The Junin gave a short nod. Understood. I suppose I should get some sleep then. Iruka frowned at him, but seemed to agree. I'm worried too. Maybe I should talk with Naruto about it? Huh? Naruto had a mouth full of noodles as he looked up at his former instructor. What about them? They won't talk to you if you can't find them. Not much I can do about it. Iruka had a frown on his face. They are real though? What do they do? What is it they are teaching you? The boy slurped, chewed, and swallowed before looking up at the man again. I'm learning to be invisible. I'm not supposed to talk about training with anyone else. It's secret stuff. The Chunin instructor's face became a little angry. What? We don't know who they are, Naruto. It could be dangerous for the village. We need to find out more about them. The boy's face fell a little. Yeah, well, you don't want to piss them off. Look, if you can find M, they'll talk to you. If you keep bugging me about M, you'll regret it though. I ain't saying nothing more. Sorry. It would be bad for me if I did. The man looked angry. They threatened you? His former student shook his head negative. Nah, you don't want to upset M. They'll get you good. Not all the pranks and stuff you think I did were really me. Ya get it? They look out for me, cause I'm their student. The young blonde in the shadowy hood smirked at his instructor. If you push it too far, stuff will start going wrong around you. Trust me, you won't like it. If you want to know about M, you gotta find M on your own. I can't help you anyway. Even I don't know where they hang out. They come to me most of the time, or tell me where to meet M. I don't really see them much myself, but I know they're around. Iruka nodded, leaned back a little in his stool, and fell flat on his back as it gave way. His eyes were wide in shock as he pushed himself up. The screws that bolted the seat into the ground in front of the counter were undone and scattered about the floor around his toppled stool. It wasn't broken, but had been taken apart at the base. His eyes turned up towards the boy finishing up a bowl of ramen. What the? You all right? The owner of the ramen booth was looking down at his fallen customer. Again? I just had that seat repaired. It's brand new. Naruto shrugged and grinned at him. Don't say I didn't warn ya. If you keep asking me about M, this'll keep happening. I'll tell ya what I told that old fart when he asked. He hopped down and helped the sweating and rather pale man to his feet. They told me ta tell anyone who asks. Find M on her own, and they'll answer anything you want to hear. He dusted off his former instructor's shoulder. I ain't gonna be able to do anything to help y'all out either. On your own. A slap to the man's shoulder and a cheerful wave was the last thing Iruka remembered seeing. Thanks for the ramen, sensei. The Chunin looked over his shoulder, and the boy was nowhere to be seen. It wasn't that surprising, but now, it bothered him more than ever. What the hell? Who? What kind of? The booth had at least 3 Junin sitting around him, and 2 other Chunin. No one looked like they had seen anything more than him taking a tumble. He looked about the street. Several other shinobi could be seen walking about nearby. None of them appeared to have seen a thing, and no sign that his former student was ever there could be seen. What the hell? How does this keep happening? The booth owner gave a small sigh as he looked over the stool and collected the screws. This is the 3rd time this month. No one has ever seen anything? Iruka looked over his shoulder. The business owner sighed and scratched his head. Not once. It's like someone is unscrewing them. There's no way though. The last time, it was that Junin Ebisu. I can't figure out what's causing it. These screws are warded against prank jutsu. He held one of them up, it was about 4 inches long, and had characters carved onto the bolt head. There's no way someone is sneaking up and unscrewing them by hand without anyone noticing. I mean, look at who is sitting here now. It's usually like this here. It's not been the same seat every time either. I can't figure it out. I replaced the flooring 2 months ago, and the threads aren't worn or anything. It's so weird. Iruka swallowed and nodded. Yeah, weird. He put some money on the counter and turned to walk away. I'll be seeing you. The owner looked a bit worried. Sorry about this. The academy instructor gave him a nervous-looking grin. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal. A week later, the blond boy sighed as he looked at the shogi board in front of him and pushed a piece forward. He was sitting in the woods with the board set up on a tree stump. In his hand was a raw rabbit leg. He was taking bites out of it and wiping the blood off his lips with a paper towel as he mulled over the game. Ken was sitting across from him and made another move. That's kind of gross, kid. The boy shrugged. Yeah, I can tell he likes it though. Still won't talk to me, just growls and stuff. Ryu was looking on at the game while leaning on a nearby tree trunk. Yes, well, he's not a pet, and you can't expect to boss him around either. You're stuck together, so it will make things easier. I'm guessing he doesn't like people much, so don't expect much in the way of conversation from him either. He'll probably be pretty rude if he does speak at all. Ken nodded. Yes, most demons are like that. He made his move and waited while the boy peered at the board and nodded. Naruto gave a small sigh. Yeah, well, it is pretty gross, I guess. Still, it's not horrible or anything. I kind of got used to it. He likes hunting them too. The shinobi sitting across from him nodded. Killing them, he enjoys that too. You shouldn't be too trusting. He is a demon and not a pet. Listen to him too much and you'll become a monster. He needs to understand that you're only willing to go so far to make him feel more comfortable. You're stuck with him as much as he's stuck with you. Ryu nodded in agreement. Yes, this sealing jutsu is new to us. We had creatures similar to him where we come from. It's not impossible to form relationships and speak with them though. They aren't very friendly even then. It is possible to be civil with them though, and it's best to be respectful. Ken smirked as the boy made his move. You're improving. Don't go trying to boss that thing around, and don't try to give him commands. He'll never be tame, and you can bet he'll try to trick you if he can. If you treat him well, he may decide to help you if you need it one day. Don't go counting on it. Naruto grinned and wiped his mouth. He licked at the fur on the dead animal's leg to clear another space to bite. You two seem to know a bit about this sort of thing. Ken shook his head. Not really. We've never dealt with something like that ourselves. There are others where we come from, in the past, who have made agreements with their kind. Ryu smirked. You've lost, Ken. He should head back. The other shinobi was gone when Naruto looked up from the game. Both of them had vanished. He started putting the game away and sighed. Yeah, I've got another mission. The boy didn't sound pleased. Probably more potato digging or babysitting. It's pretty boring. You'll miss it when your missions become dangerous. Ryu's voice said from the shadows. Ken's voice agreed. He's right. Enjoy the easy work while you still can. Stop screwing with that Uchiha kid so much. The Haruno girl too. They're your team, and you should start helping them out. Naruto flushed. What? Are you kidding? The guy is a... Yes, we know. Ken chuckled. I've got to admit, it's been entertaining. Replacing his soap with that skunk-scented bar was funny. So was giving that girl the hairbrush with the hooks hidden in the bristles. The boy nodded and cheered up a bit. Yeah, filling her pillowcase with marshmallows was fun too. Not to mention those shrinking shorts I gave that jerk Sasuke. He couldn't walk right for days. Ryu chuckled from the darkness. Naruto still couldn't spot them, despite the fact they were nearby. Yes. However, these two, they are your team. It's time you got to know them. They should be respected, and you should do your best to get along. It caught the young shinobi by surprise. Huh? Ken sighed. He's right. You need to help them out. Those you must serve with, they are those you must know and care for. Your lives might one day depend upon each other. They are your brother and sister. These are the people you should know best. Your allies, your friends, your family. Uzumaki growled a little. That jerk Sasuke, he's not my. Ryu's voice was a little firm, but not angry. They should be. Your fellow shinobi must be respected, and you should do your best to help them when you can. Especially those two, they are your team. You must care for them. Ken agreed in a firm tone as well. That man, Kakashi, he is right. A shinobi who does not look after his companions is lower than trash. In our line of work, in our way, all a shinobi has are his companions and his duty. The boy's face fell, and his eyes softened as he looked at the ground. Ryu was smiling. Uzumaki could tell from his tone. These two, they may be your only chance for real friends. We like you, but we are teachers. The ones you work with, they are your peers. You will need them one day. Such strength is often more important than personal power or skill. Naruto's eyes went wide. It was obvious he was confused. Huh? I don't understand. Ken's tone was light as he answered. What is it you fight for? What is it you will protect? Yourself alone? Is that all you care for? If that is true, you will never know real strength. The genin pulled his hood over his head and started walking away. I still don't get it. Ryu's voice faded as he left the edge of the wood for his home. That is something you will only understand in time. Stop hiding from them all the time. Ken's voice grew weaker as he spoke and left as well. He's right. Being invisible is fine, but you must have a connection. Even we had those who knew of us, our fellow shadows. It's hard to get laid if no one knows you. You'll regret it when you're older if you vanish from the world completely now. Naruto's nose scrunched up a bit. Laid? Perverts. Still, I guess. Hey. Sakura Haruno gasped and clutched at her chest. Potatoes tumbled across the ground at her feet as she landed on her rear. Sasuke frowned. Finally decided to show up and help with the work, did you? Every time we've got to do anything, you vanish. The boy sounded annoyed and dumped an armload into a wheelbarrow in front of him. The Uzumaki boy's eyes turned to glare at him. What are you doing? Scaring me like that, you lazy jerk? Sakura dumped what was left in her arm into the same wheelbarrow as Sasuke. She frowned at the shadowy boy and flushed as she stepped back away from him. Kakashi seemed to appear in front of them. He had his place kept in the book that was against his hip with his thumb. Now, don't go scolding him. The Uchiha boy looked over his shoulder at him. What? We've been out helping with the harvest for a week now. Babysitting brats and finding stupid pets. He's done just as much as you. In fact, he usually does more. Sakura took 3 loads of rice from the fields yesterday, and you collected 5. Uzumaki turned in 6. Kakashi seemed cheerful and put his hand on the black-clad Naruto's shoulder. He's not been slacking off at all. You've just not seen him. Uchiha and Haruno both looked at their instructor with wide eyes. Huh? I've been doing missions with you every day. What? Did you think that missing dog fell out of the sky into your arms yesterday, Uchiha? Maybe it climbed a tree and decided to ambush you? The Uzumaki boy's voice was quiet, and he glared at the raven-haired boy in an annoyed way. Just because you can't see me doesn't mean I'm not around. I've heard what you've been saying about me, you know. Both of you. Sakura turned a little pink. What? Sasuke didn't look impressed. You've been spying on us then? Listening in? Naruto snorted. What if I have? I'm supposed to be around, you know. You just didn't think I was here. So you spoke as if I wasn't. The Uchiha boy clenched his fist and looked away. You're still nothing but a coward. Why show your face now? Finally got the nerve to face me? The blonde hooded boy shook his head. Why would I be scared of you? If I wanted to hurt you, you'd never even see it coming. Sasuke growled and tossed the potatoes he'd picked up from the ground at his feet back down. What? Just try it, you. Kakashi gave a heavy sigh and grabbed his shoulder. Calm down. You two are both working on your second load. Naruto has already done 4 today. Strictly speaking, he's ahead of you both. Sakura gasped. What? He's a jerk, and he was at the bottom of our class. The Uchiha boy glared up at Kakashi. No way. I'm not inferior to that loser. He couldn't even pass the stupid exam. He just got lucky. 5 minutes. They all looked over at Naruto. He had his back to them, with his arms crossed over his chest. Kakashi gave a sigh as his one visible eye drooped a little. Sakura was confused and annoyed. What? 5 minutes for what? I'll finish the rest of this field in 5 minutes. Naruto wiped the side of his nose with his thumb. They were halfway done, and still had about a half a football field-sized area to go. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. Yeah, I'd like to see that. No way. Sakura seemed confident. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The blonde boy spoke the words low enough that no one heard it. A split second later, the entire remaining field was full of black hoods and shirts with scarves over their faces. The two children looked on with slack jaws as each clone started working on a small patch, each one collecting 3 to 5 potatoes. Kakashi stood behind his two students and cocked his head a little as he watched. So, that's how he was able to. The instructor muttered it as his two students watched their teammate work all over the place at once. The battle for the bells made a lot more sense now. He'd positioned himself all around the battle, and waited for an opportunity for each part of his plan to occur with a different clone. There were hundreds of him, and at that moment, each one was working with the others in a team to finish the job. They all vanished after taking the remaining loads to the edge of the field, where still more of him were loading them onto the waiting horse-drawn cart. In a little under 5 minutes, the whole field had been completed. And no way. Sakura had her jaw hanging as she stood in a sort of frozen shock. Sasuke was glaring at the filled cart and clenching his fist. Naruto was standing by himself next to the cart. Each clone had vanished as its part of the job was completed. We're done now. Kakashi nodded. I suppose we're done then. Take the rest of the day off and relax. I'll see you all tomorrow. He looked down at Naruto and gave him a cheerful expression. I should scold you, but I'll let it go this time. Jutsu like that for this kind of job is a bit of a waste. Show off. Sasuke growled and glared at the boy. Naruto nodded. Just this once, to prove a point. Sakura seemed annoyed as well. What point? You're not better than me, and I'm not scared of you. I suppose we're a team, and I should try to get along. After all, we'll be depending on each other. We won't have such easy work forever, you know. Best enjoy it while it lasts. He gave them a grin and pulled his hood off his head. Sasuke looked away, and Sakura seemed a bit flushed. Neither one of them looked at him and shuffled away. Naruto gave a small sigh and waved at Kakashi as he moved off towards the village himself. Jerks. Kakashi watched him move off, not taking his eyes away as he stayed quiet. That kid is something else. I've got to wonder though. He smiled a little. Why he decided to just show himself today. He's not done that before. Once he'd gotten his orders, he usually went out of sight and didn't show up again until the job was done. It left Sakura and Sasuke feeling like they'd done all the work themselves. The girl spent most of her time trying to catch the Uchiha boy's attention, and Sasuke ignored her and kept to himself for the most part. They both seemed to get a bit annoyed that he'd never scolded Naruto for what they saw as slacking off. Maybe I don't need to talk with him about it? He'd been planning on getting Naruto on his own and talking with him. It was getting tiresome dealing with the pair complaining about it. 2 months later, Naruto gave a small sigh. Yeah, I already finished. So? Sasuke was a little dirty and glared at the hooded boy as Uzumaki held a cat with a ribbon tied to her ear in his arms. What? We've been chasing that thing about. Sakura frowned and gave a small sigh. How did you manage it anyway? She seemed a bit annoyed as well, but looked tired of worrying about the mysterious boy. Ever since the day they'd gotten potato digging in their duties, they'd both seen him about a lot more. He still vanished, but he had started appearing to speak with them as well. I noticed she had a lot of empty cans of poached salmon in her trash. So, I figured it was this one's favorite. The hooded boy had the animal hanging from his arms and had a bit of a tired expression on his face. He kept his face hidden behind his scarf, and they'd both only seen him without it once or twice while he was eating. He'd started showing up to eat with them when they had meals during missions. What's the big deal anyway? We got her, right? The job is done. Kakashi nodded and looked like he wasn't going to say much. A clever trap. He was using it as an opportunity to teach them about coordinating an ambush. Naruto had a habit of screwing up his lesson plans by finishing the job in creative and intelligent ways on his own. He didn't really have the energy or desire to argue about it. Sasuke and Sakura were both about to pounce into the bushes with the animal to capture it, when Naruto walked out of them with the cat in his arms. The Hokage sighed as he read off the missions for Team 7 that day. He had his fist in his cheek and looked a bit bored as he spoke. Babysitting for an elder, shopping in a neighboring village, and helping with the potato digging. Naruto and Kakashi both nodded together with their arms crossed in an identical pose. Sasuke and Sakura both hung their heads and sighed. "This sucks," Sasuke muttered under his breath. "No kidding," Sakura agreed in a half-whisper. Naruto cocked his head and didn't uncross his arms. Kakashi glanced at his other two students and said nothing. "Suck up," Sasuke grumbled as he looked at the hooded boy with the scarf over his face. "Is there a problem, Uchiha?" Iruka was sitting next to the Hokage and stood up, putting his hands on the desk. The raven-haired boy turned his eyes away. "No, sir." Sakura flushed. "Isn't there anything else we can do? I mean, it's been a bit boring so far." Iruka frowned at her and stood up straight while crossing his arms. "You guys are only recently genin. D-ranked missions are perfect for you." The Hokage puffed on his pipe and looked over at Naruto. Kakashi was looking away and seemed like he didn't want to speak up if he could avoid it. "Something to add, Uzumaki?" The boy hung his head and slumped his shoulders. "I'll probably regret it, it's been pretty relaxing so far, but I'm not a farmer. I wouldn't mind something a bit different myself." The old man chuckled. "I suppose I can understand that. If you want it so much, I can give you a C-ranked mission. The protection of a certain individual. I'll introduce you." The door opened and an older man with white hair, a small beard, and a bottle of alcohol in his grip leaned against the doorframe. "Huh, they're all a bunch of super brats." The short one looked stupid, hiding his face. "What, you got chronic acne or something?" Sakura snorted in amusement. Sasuke glanced at the hooded boy next to him and turned his nose up and away from him. Naruto glanced back and forth and seemed to realize that he meant him. "I'm gonna get you for that later, old man." Kakashi gave a small sigh. "You can't hurt him, he's a client. I am Super Bridge Builder Tazuna. I expect you to provide me with protection until I get back to my country and complete my bridge." "Yeah, don't mess with me, old man. I'll fuck you up." Naruto narrowed his eyes at the rather irate and lazy-looking man in the doorway. A short time later, Tazuna looked about as Sakura and Sasuke walked out of the gates ahead of him and out of the village. Kakashi was behind him and gave a small sigh as the two young genin looked about at their surroundings. "It's kind of exciting, isn't it?" Sakura smiled at Sasuke. "Uzumaki has vanished again. Typical." The boy was ignoring her and looking about at the brush along the path that led away from the village. "Where's that other brat? The stupid-looking one?" Tazuna glanced back at Kakashi. "Did you send him ahead to scout or something? He didn't seem too bright." Kakashi shrugged. "I'm not sure where he is. He's around nearby though. I'd be careful what I said." The man snorted. "Huh? Why? What's that brat gonna do?" He brought his bottle up to his lips, took a few deep gulps. His eyes went very wide, the air was sprayed with liquid, and he gasped for breath. Tazuna started coughing and gagging as he leaned over while the three shinobi looked at him in wide-eyed confusion. The man looked at his bottle in shock and gasped out a few muttered curses. "Are you all right?" Sakura took a tentative step forward and raised her hand a little. Sasuke kept his back to them all and hid his smirk with his hands in his pockets. Kakashi was at the man's side. "What happened?" Tazuna seemed confused as he looked at his bottle. "It was fine a moment ago." "I don't." Kakashi took the bottle from his grip as he narrowed his eyes and sniffed the contents with care. "Oh, I see. Well, I did warn you. It's best not to tease Uzumaki. His revenge can be quite terrible." The bridge builder seemed confused. "I've had that in my hand the whole time." "I don't." Sakura looked at Kakashi. "Sensei, what happened?" Kakashi held the bottle up and shook it. It was about half full. "It's full of vinegar." Sasuke looked over his shoulder and frowned. "There are people in the village that won't even say his name. People who piss off Uzumaki tend to have bad stuff happen to them." The pink-haired Kunoichi frowned at the boy. "Huh? I never really noticed until we got put on the same team as him." The raven-haired shinobi looked ahead and started walking with his hands in his pockets. "What?" The kunoichi got a little wide-eyed. Hey, I guess. Nothing has happened to us in a while. Sasuke nodded. Yup, not since that day in the fields. The girl blinked and thought about it. Why, you're right. Why not? She flushed as she realized they'd both said nasty things about him. He never seemed to be around, and didn't talk much. They'd seen a lot more of him since that day. The boy in question was leaning against a nearby tree. You're on my team. He looked at Tazuna and narrowed his eyes. That old guy isn't so lucky. The bridge builder frowned. Where did you come from? Naruto turned his head away and pushed himself upright with his shoulders. Just cause you can't see me doesn't mean I'm not around. You brat, this is how you treat your clients. Tazuna threw the bottle Kakashi had handed back to him on the ground. I told you, screw with me, and I'll fuck you up. With that said, he followed after Sasuke. Tazuna glared at his back and turned to face Kakashi. Am I safe with that brat? The man gave him a cheerful expression. Don't worry, I'm a Junin. You'll be fine. A short distance away, Kakashi and Tazuna were talking with Sakura about Wave Country, where they were headed, and Shinobi. The Wave Country didn't have a hidden village, and the girl was curious. So, we won't run into any foreign ninja, sensei? Kakashi laughed in a cheerful manner. No, don't worry. There won't be any ninja combat in a C-ranked mission. Sasuke glanced at Tazuna and frowned as the man lowered his eyes and seemed to think about something. The Junin was relaxed as he walked a short distance behind them. He passed a puddle on the ground and eyed it as he moved by. Just after they passed, two figures rose out of the water. They were dressed in black cloaks, with breathing masks over their faces, and forehead protectors above their eyes. The pair moved in silence, each with a clawed metal gauntlet with a thick bladed cable connecting them. The taller of the pair launched his companion into the air and set himself. A moment later, the smaller shinobi landed nearby Kakashi, wrapping the man up in the deadly-looking cable between their gauntlets. The pair pulled it tight, holding him in place with several coils wrapped around him. Sakura and Sasuke turned around, wide-eyed with surprise as the two strange shinobi captured their instructor. What the? Muttered the boy. Haruno cried out in alarm at her teacher. Kakashi-sensei. One of the attackers chuckled. One Dao. The bridge builder and two genin blinked. A head rolled across the ground between the old man's feet. The other assailant jerked his arm, but found himself with slack and seemed confused. Huh? A sudden pain in his chest and the sensation of moving up and forward a little caught him by surprise. Naruto. Kakashi's eyes went wide. Half of his face was covered in blood, the headless body on one side of him spraying the air in a violent manner as it fell down into the dirt. His other assailant had a blade jutting through his chest from behind him. He fell forward, and the blade slid out as he did so. The hooded boy jerked his arm, shaking the blood off his sword and put it back onto his back as he looked down at the fallen shinobi in front of him. His eyes were calm and he cocked his head as he flipped the attacker over with his foot. An enemy. Kakashi was looking at him with a wide eye. The coils fell away from his body and he took a staggering step towards the hooded boy. Uzumaki. The boy looked up at him and seemed pleased. You're all right then, Kakashi-sensei? The man straightened up. I'm fine. You did well. The boy nodded and looked down at the body again. Who are they? He tapped at the man's forehead protector with his foot. The instructor knelt beside the body and got a better look. It looks like a shinobi from the Hidden Mist village. Chunin, I'd say. Sasuke was looking at Naruto with wide eyes. Sakura was in front of Tazuna, and she was shaking a little with a similar expression. Haruno was looking at her black-clad fellow genin in surprise and confusion. I never even saw. The Uchiha boy calmed down right away and walked over to the pair. He looked the body up and down and glanced over at the headless corpse. Not bad, Uzumaki. Kakashi nodded at Sasuke. This isn't a C-ranked mission anymore. It's at least a B-rank assignment now. We're not sure if they're after one of us or our client. I didn't want to kill them right away. The blonde boy shrugged. Sorry, it looked like you were in a bit of a bind. He glanced at Tazuna. When they came out of that puddle behind you, they looked at him first. I'm pretty sure they just attacked you to get you out of the way. Kakashi nodded. Yes, well, we're not sure. Sakura stayed in front of the old man and looked nervous with a kunai knife in her grip. What do we do then? Their instructor was looking at Naruto. The boy wasn't paying any attention to the bodies anymore, and was looking about the tree line. He didn't seem to be thinking much at all about what he'd just done. He didn't seem to think anything of it. The boy fell to his knees and started going through the body's vest pockets. After a moment, he looked up at Kakashi. "Well, I guess we know now." He handed the man a photo from the dead shinobi's pocket. It was of Tazuna, and the edges were worn, with a few punctures from what looked like shuriken or kunai on the man's face. He frowned at the evidence and nodded. "Tazuna-san, I need to talk with you." He walked away from the group and waved the old man over. Naruto was calm and collected, and that bothered him a little. When he looked away from Tazuna towards his students, the blonde boy had already vanished again. Sakura was breathing heavily as Sasuke walked over to her side with his hands in his pockets. He looked calm and cool as well. The girl was flustered and excited. "Did you see that?" she gasped at her fellow genin. The boy glanced at her and frowned. "No, I do feel better about this mission now." He looked at the road ahead. He felt better about the team as well. "We can count on him if we need to." "That's good." Uzumaki Naruto's reputation as a coward seemed less deserved than it ever had before in his eyes. He'd not caught a glimpse of the boy until it was over. 2 men had died right in front of him, and he'd not seen the strikes. A chill ran down his spine, and he felt his skin crawl a little. It wasn't really a pleasant feeling, but his respect for his teammate had grown. "Be better?" Sakura's eyes got a bit wider as her jaw dropped a little. "Master Kakashi just got attacked by 2 strange shinobi." Sasuke smirked. "Yup, interesting." Sakura flushed a bit as she seemed to calm a little more. "That's kind of cool, I guess." The boy with her didn't seem to think anything of it. Sasuke didn't seem worried at all, and it was kind of hot. Her cheeks flushed as a breeze blew by, shifting his hair and shirt. Uchiha wasn't paying her any attention. "Pretty impressive, Uzumaki." He looked back towards Kakashi. Naruto frowned as he looked down on the scene from a nearby tree branch. "No, not really." He looked at his hand and frowned. He'd never killed anyone before. He clenched his fist and looked over at Kakashi and the old man. He had to look ahead now though. As far as he was concerned, the mission was only just starting. His eyes turned towards the head that was still resting on the ground nearby. The eyes were open and seemed to be looking right at him. "I'll think about it when this is over." He closed his eyes and forced himself to turn away from it. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.